We were getting mortared on and rocketed almost on an everyday basis. I don't remember a whole lot. I just kind of remember like my guys picking me up, and I just remember like having dust and dirt like all over me and in my mouth and having the ringing in my ears. You want to talk about God looking out for you. If you saw the shrapnel that flew past me and was like stuck into walls and stuff. I mean, this is shrapnel from the Humvee.
Yeah.
And none of that hit any of us.
That's unreal.
That's insane.
Good afternoon. This is the JP Dinnell podcast, episode 42. I am JP Dinnell, and as always, I have Lucas with me. Today's guest is one of my best friends from the SEAL teams. And to be honest, I could write a mini book about my thoughts on him, the man that he is, and the stories that we have shared together in the SEAL teams and in life. But honestly, I would rather us just dive right into this podcast so that we can learn more about Carlos Mendez and the incredible human that he is. Like I said, Carlos and I were in the SEAL teams together, and this was when we were both working for Jocko at TRADET as enlisted SEALs. Carlos has an impressive career with over 20 years of service. He was a medic with the Marines, where he deployed twice with them before going to BUD/S to become a Navy SEAL. He had multiple combat deployments with SEAL Team 1, SEAL Team 3, the Special Reconnaissance SEAL Team 1. He was a sniper, a point man, a medic, was an enlisted SEAL, was selected to go through the Seaman to Admiral program to become an officer in the SEAL teams. He's a recipient of a Purple Heart, multiple different medals with valor for his heroism in combat. He is a husband. He is a father of 2 boys. He is bilingual. He looks like a professional boxer you guys might know. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll know. If you're not, you should go over to YouTube right now and tell us who you think he looks like. Anyways, Carlos, I'm honored to have you here, my man.
Awesome. I'm honored to have to be here. Appreciate it.
What's up, buddy? How's your travel in?
It was an easy day.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. You are on the road, my man. Lucas, what's up, man?
What's going on? I'm just happy to be here with a couple of other guys. I think we would all been on the Smurf boats. So it's been good company.
Yes. All right.
What was the height, like, I would say the requirement? What was the threshold? Because it
You
was like
weren't
different
Smurf.
at every...
I wasn't
at
in
every-
the Smurf
I wasn't
group.
Smurf ever. I wasn't even close.
Yeah.
That makes me feel really tall.
I mean,
Because I fall like right in between you guys.
You would be tall on the Smurf crew.
So you think I would have been the tallest Smurf guy?
Maybe the tallest Smurf guy or the boat above the Smurf crew.
Yes.
Right on.
Yes.
So I'm like a giant in Japan kind of a thing.
Sweet. A giant in Japan.
That's awesome.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right, Carlos. You're a Northern California boy as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. What was it like growing up? Where exactly are you from?
So I'm actually from Guatemala. I was born in Guatemala. My mother and I moved out to San Francisco when I was 5 years old. And so I grew up in the Bay Area, San Francisco, Oakland, and then I believe right around junior high or so, we moved out to Sacramento. So yeah, Northern California for most of my childhood.
That's cool. What made you guys leave Guatemala?
So my father actually passed away when my mother was pregnant with me. He got into a car accident. As a matter of fact, he got into a car accident the day of my mother's baby shower. So at the baby shower, the police came and knocked on the door and gave her the news that my dad had passed away in a car accident. So she was a single mom, and my dad's family helped out quite a bit. But my dad happened to be my grandparents' favorite. So as a result, I became the favorite grandchild.
Got it.
And I was very spoiled. And my mother was not happy about the amount of influence that my grandparents were having on me and wanted to have on me. Like, they wanted a lot more say, I think, than she wanted them to have.
Okay.
And so my father's family all lived in Guatemala. My mother's side of the family all lived in Northern California. So she decided to make the move. And we ended up in San Francisco.
That's a bold move on her part, because if she could have stayed there and had ultimate support and could have been taken care of, kind of.
Yeah, because my father's side of the family is actually, they're pretty well off.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was an enormous risk. So we went from living a pretty good life from what I remember.
Yeah.
I remember going to a private Catholic school. We had a maid. I mean, I remember that stuff. And then when we moved to San Francisco, we were like renting a basement out from from some lady. I mean, so yeah, it was a big leap for her. For sure.
Quite the difference.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You're in a private Catholic school, you have a maid, and then all of a sudden it's like, now we are in, I'm assuming, probably not the best neighborhood in the San Francisco area.
No, we grew up
renting
in the Mission.
a basement. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my mother, she went from being a professor to, all those credentials didn't carry over. So she went from being a professor to, she was now a maid. She was cleaning people's houses. So she would help out at the school that I was with as a teacher's assistant so she can keep an eye on me. Because think about it, we just moved to an entirely new country. She's afraid to, I'm her only child. So she's like, hey, this is the way I'm going to keep an eye on you. I'm going to apply at the school, a very low paying job as an assistant there so she could keep an eye on me. After school, we would leave and she would clean people's houses all night. And I would do my homework. And when I was done with my homework, I would help her clean as well.
I was going to ask, would you go with her and help clean?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So from that, that had to have instilled some just core tendencies and behaviors into who you are in regards to hard work and discipline and just seeing your mom like not make any excuses but go out there and get after it.
Yeah, I think that's probably where I started to get the quality. I love helping people. I truly, truly love helping people.
Yes,
it's one of my greatest joys in life. And I think seeing my mom work as hard as she did, like I would just remember wanting to finish with my homework because I wanted to help. I wanted to help. I wanted to help her mop. I wanted to help her sweep. I wanted to help her do all these things. And that kind of just carried with me throughout life.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So initially, before you moved to Sacramento, what was that neighborhood like? Was it decent? Did you ever have any problems there? Or
it wasn't great.
Okay.
It wasn't great. And what made it worse was, my mother didn't dress me up in the cool clothes. We went to the Goodwill and we bought clothes there, and she dressed me in a collared shirt tucked in with some khakis and some alligator shoes.
Okay.
Yeah. So in Guatemala, they have these leather alligator shoes, and she would order them from Guatemala. She would ask the family to send them over. And so, this was around the time where people are wearing those starter jackets.
I was going to say quite the different. I remember the starter jacket scene.
Yes. Starter jackets, the Jordans were coming out. I was
a lot of wannabe gangbangers.
Yes. And here I am showing up with my shirt tucked in, looking like a complete nerd.
Bro, I bet you look squared away.
I did look squared away for like the first half until I got in fights, defending myself. And then I came home looking not very squared away.
Dude, I remember, it's funny you say this. I remember when your oldest son would come to TRADET and come to work with you, or we'd be, at Kavner's house, or, somebody, or we're doing UFC fights at your house or whatever, and he'd be around. He was always like squared away. You would make sure, like, it was the same thing though. It's funny because I remember him as a little boy. There was times where he was wearing a tucked in polo and, a belt, or like he would be wearing a nice t-shirt. And I know he used to love to wear your G-Shock watch.
Oh yeah.
Like all the time. So it's just funny. Like you're saying, you're like, I look like a nerd. And I'm like, man, I think you probably looked pretty squared away. And I remember you've, done the same with your son, but I could see in that area as well that it probably wasn't the ideal situation for you.
No.
But I mean, whatever, who cares, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you probably learned how to scrap a little bit.
I don't know if I learned, but I definitely got some experience.
Oh man!
And I ended up getting thick skin too, though. Because think about it. Besides that, I didn't speak any English. I literally showed up day one at school not speaking any English at all, and my mom would not allow me to speak English at home. And the only reason for that is she wanted me to be bilingual. And it makes sense, right? Because a lot of my family that was in San Francisco, they were like, hey, we want our kids to speak speak English because we don't want them to get made fun of when they're in school. My mom was like, I don't care if he gets made fun of. He's gonna retain his Spanish, and he's gonna learn English no matter what.
Yeah.
Because he's out there mingling, he's going to school, he's learning that no matter what. So, yeah, it was a little rough for me maybe the first year or so.
Okay. You guys moved to Sacramento. Why'd you guys move?
So while we were in San Francisco, my mother met my stepdad in English school. So I have no idea how they communicated because neither of them spoke English very well. So, but somehow, listen, they're still together, by the way. So obviously they did something right.
That's what we call love.
Yeah, right. So they got married, and then as we were growing up, listen, it's tough in the Bay Area. It's expensive. It's the area that we lived in was probably not the best area to raise kids. And I remember my stepdad going out to Sacramento, like just to check it out. And he's like, hey, there's lots of space out here. Like houses have backyards. It's much cheaper. So we ended up moving out to Sacramento. And for the very first time, I had a backyard, which was awesome and not so awesome at the same time. So we were renting this house. And I remember it had a pretty enormous backyard. And because it had an enormous backyard, I ended up having a ton of chores. So maintaining that backyard was a lot of work because we had a lot of fruit trees, we had a lot of vegetables, we had pets. I mean, and my stepdad, I skipped this whole section. He was born in Czech Republic. So it was Czechoslovakia back then, right, when it was still under communist rule.
Oh, wow.
So he's a very hard man.
So he escaped that.
Yes, he escaped. Yeah, so he actually he wrote for the school paper, and his senior year of high school, he drew a cartoon criticizing communism. And yeah, your laugh says it all, right? That's looked
like
down upon.
uncomfortable.
So some men showed up. Some men showed up from the government.
The NVDs showed up to talk to him.
Oh, and by talking, they beat him, right? They beat him to a pulp, and they told him, hey, when you graduate high school, we're going to send you to the mines, and that's where you're going to work for the rest of your life till you die. And so without telling a soul, because, you know, you can't tell anybody because everybody there is a spy for the government, right? Without telling a soul, he packed a backpack, and he escaped. He escaped the country. And,
As a senior in high school.
18 years old, dude. Didn't know a soul in the United States. And by the way, his plan wasn't to make it to the United States. It was just to leave Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
And he ended up in a refugee camp in Yugoslavia. And it's a long story. I'm definitely shortening it. But he ended up in jail in a couple other countries, right, because he had escaped. But they were like, well, we're not going to send you back. I mean, you made it this far. Because
God.
he literally crawled on his belly for days across that border to make it across, and made his way to Yugoslavia, was in a refugee camp, and they ended up having some visa lottery. And he actually wanted to go to Australia. I mean, and then he ended up getting the U.S. He didn't know a whole lot about the U.S., but he's like, cool, I'll take it, right? And he ended up in San Francisco. So if you can imagine being 18, 19 years old, you're in this country, you don't know a soul, you don't know the language. I mean, that's
insane.
Yeah, I look at that now, and I have a ton of respect for him.
As you should. I do too.
Yeah.
Like I've heard brief moments of this story, and now just you telling a little bit more in that condensed. I'm like, man, the amount of respect that I have for that man that's incredible. Yeah. And there's so many just lessons from that story alone that any human can take. I mean, the guy definitely, I'm willing to bet he doesn't make up excuses as to why he can't do things in life.
No, he is probably the hardest working human being I've ever met in my life. He's probably the most honest. I mean, he's black and white. It's either right or it's not. And it doesn't matter how hard it is. If it's the right thing to do, he's going to do it.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. And by the way, he's probably one of the most patriotic people I've ever met. And, it's because he's seen like the detriment of communism. So when he came here, he realized like how awesome we have it here. And like I said, it's pretty awesome to see how much he loves this country.
Dude, that's rad. Okay, so big yard, Sacramento, lots of chores.
Lots of chores. So yeah, so that really goes back to my stepdad, right? Because he had me doing a lot of chores. So I would come home, I would do chores. When we ate dinner, my chores were to wash all the dishes, clean the kitchen out. When I say clean the kitchen out, I mean everything had to come off the counter. I had to wipe everything down, sweep, mop. I mean, that kitchen was spotless.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then I would do my homework, and that was kind of my childhood from what I remember. There wasn't a ton of time for me to play.
Okay.
I mean, I had my friends here and there, and I got to play now and then, but it wasn't like a normal childhood
Okay.
per se. And then my brothers came along, so I spent a lot of time helping raise my little brothers as well. So I changed a lot of diapers. So listen, when my first son came along, it wasn't a thing, dude. Like I knew,
You're like, cool,
yeah,
check.
I've done this tons of times. It wasn't a thing. So a lot of my childhood was spent helping out around the house, helping with my brothers. And I think that's what made me a very responsible human being at a very young age.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, you have to be.
Okay. What was it? The chores that you're doing was obviously very important for you to learn how to do those things, and learning hard work and discipline. I know you mentioned this. You were on Jocko's podcast about the garden and how I mean, as an adult, like you'd think like, oh, that was kind of cool. As a kid, you probably didn't think it was the coolest thing, but a lot of your guys' food came from that garden, and also the rabbits that you raised.
Yeah. So somewhere along the lines, my parents applied for this low-income program where it was like a path to ownership. So the program was basically, hey, you get a house, you could buy a house much cheaper than you would normally, but here's the catch, you have to build it. So every weekend I don't remember how long it took us to build this house, but I remember every weekend and after school, I was at that house helping build our house. Wow. Which was pretty amazing. I mean, we did everything from the foundation to the framing to the insulation. I mean, it was awesome. The roofing, well, it's awesome as I look at it back now, but as a kid, I'm like, dude, this sucks, because every single weekend I was there helping build that house. Once it was built, my dad built out a shed. He built out like this garden, right? We had all kinds of vegetables in there, and that's where we would get our vegetables from. We had a compost pile, so all that was my responsibility as well. And then at one point he was like, all right, we need our meat now. So I remember that we went to some California State Fair, and he had already done his research. And so he knew like what kind of rabbits you needed to buy to eat. And they were California rabbits.
So what time frame was this? If rough?
Probably 6th grade or so, 6th, 7th grade.
So he's not getting on the internet to do his research.
No.
Okay.
No.
I just
He's
want
going
our
to the library.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's where I wanted to go with this. I wanted our listeners. He's not pulling out his iPhone, Googling this stuff.
No.
When people, and that's what I love about that generation, that you and I were able to experience and see.
Yeah.
Like, you want to do research, you went to the library. Or if somebody had a bunch of encyclopedias at their house, that you're like, hey, bro, can I borrow this encyclopedia?
Yeah.
You remember that? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So I remember that man going to the library all the time. He wanted to learn how to do something. He went to the library and he looked it up. And by the way, I learned that from him. Like, I'm the same way now. Before I get into anything, I'm going to do some research. Obviously, it's much easier to do it now.
Yeah.
But he said in Czech, we ate rabbits. They're delicious. They're very good for you. They're low in fat. They're very lean. And so we went to this California fair, and we ended up buying California rabbits. They're big. They're white. And that was a new chore that I had, was to help raise these rabbits. So, we're breeding these rabbits. We got all these baby rabbits running around. I think it's the coolest thing, because I love animals.
Yeah.
I'm getting attached to these rabbits. And then the time comes where we need to butcher them. And he goes, hey, that's going to be your responsibility, to butcher them, clean them out, put them in the freezer. And so I'm like, okay. And he says, well, I need you to kill the first one. Go ahead and kill that first rabbit. And when you kill it, let me know. I'll show you how to skin it, gut it, get it ready, to put in the freezer. And he would do that to me all the time. Like, he would say, hey, I need you to do this. Maybe a couple parameters here and there. And I remember a lot of chores that he would give me. I would sit in the yard for a while and be like, I don't know how to do this. But I would figure it out at some point.
Yes.
And I think that's what made me self-sufficient as a young man, because he would literally give me very little direction and be like, hey, this needs to get done. So same thing with the rabbits, right? Hey, you need to kill a rabbit. Let me know when it's done. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, I don't know how to kill a rabbit. It's not like I've got a gun or I've got knives. I got nothing. So I was like, I'm going to fill up a water bucket. I'm going to fill up a bucket with water, and I'm going to drown this thing. And remember, I'm 12 years old maybe, right? 11, 12 years old. And so I grabbed that first rabbit, and I put him in the water, and this thing was freaking kicking all over the place, and they scream. I didn't know they screamed. They actually screamed.
Yeah.
So it was traumatizing for me, bro, because I'm trying to like hold this rabbit under the water. It's not freaking drowning, right? It takes a while. And so I'm bawling, dude. Like I'm crying. I've got snot coming down my nose. I'm like holding this rabbit down. I'm like, please just freaking die. Just freaking die. And then finally the thing dies. It's soaking wet. I pull it out, right? I grab my dad. I'm crying. And of course he sees me. He's like, why are you crying, Fifina?
Yeah.
So that was his nickname for me. We're in a church, so I won't say what it means, but let's say it means pansy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a version of pansy.
Gotcha.
It's a meaner way of saying pansy.
Yeah.
So he used to call me a Fifina all the time. That was his nickname for me.
You didn't know that originally, did you?
Oh, no, I knew what it meant.
Oh, you did know
yeah,
what
I
it
knew
meant.
what it meant.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you
Well,
did.
at first I didn't.
Oh, okay.
But
yeah.
I figured it out. I figured it out because I had a check. I had a check to English book.
Oh, got it.
Right?
And you're like, wait, hold on.
Yeah, I
He
figured
keeps
it
calling
out.
me this. Wait a minute.
Yeah, I figured it out at some point. But anyways, so he shows me how to skin the rabbit. I'm not really paying attention, bro. I'm freaking traumatized. So I'm not really paying attention. So he's like, all right, I need you to kill the next one. And so I'm thinking, once again, I'm sitting in the backyard by myself, just contemplating. And I'm thinking, all right, well, listen, I don't want to drown another rabbit. That was miserable.
That sounds horrible.
It was horrible, and it took way too long. So we had a bunch of, like I said, we built a lot of things in the backyard. So we had a lot of lumber back there and stuff. So I saw a 2x4 back there, and I'm like, maybe if I just smack this thing with a 2x4, that'll be fast. Mm-hmm. So I grab this rabbit. I'm holding it by its feet. I grab the 2x4, and I hit it, but I kind of half-ass it.
Yeah.
I don't like fully commit to it. I kind of hit it. And of course, it's still alive. So now that rabbit starts freaking screaming and squirming all over the place. And I'm grabbing it by its hind legs. And it's just like going all over the place. And I'm trying to whack this thing with the 2x4. I'm missing sometimes. Sometimes I'm hitting the torso. And finally, I hit it enough times where it finally died. And I grab my dad. Same thing, right? Rinse and repeat. He shows me. And he's like, all right, you got this now? He's like, I've shown you twice how to skin it. He's like, finish the rest of them. Let me know when you're done. So now I'm sitting in the backyard. I'm on my third rabbit now. I grab that rabbit, and you've heard me tell this story before, but at some point I'm looking at this rabbit and something just clicks inside of me. And I'm just like, you know what? If I want this to work, I need to fully 100% commit.
Yeah.
Like no hesitation whatsoever. Like just do it. Mm-hmm. So I grabbed that rabbit. I grabbed that 2x4. I focused, and I hit him square on the head as hard as I human possibly could, and it was out. Sweet. And I realized that's what I need to do.
Yeah, that's good.
And I say that now, and it's crazy because it was kind of an epiphany for me in the sense that whenever I'm scared to do something, whenever I'm hesitant to do something, that thought comes into my head. I need to fully 100% commit or it's not going to work. And by the way, you know where I did this a lot in the teams? When I jumped. When I jumped out of planes. I'm terrified of jumping.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's kind of a dangerous thing.
Yeah. So when I got in that plane and I was on that ramp getting ready to jump, I'm like, listen, if I don't 100% commit, I'm going to hurt myself or I'm going to hurt one of my friends. So I'm like, just do it. 100%. And with anything in life, I've kind of just been that way. Hey, if I'm scared to do it, I got to actually double down on it, commit to it, and just do it.
Okay. I like it. Did you play any sports?
No. You know what sports I played? I played chores. That's what I played.
I kind of knew that answer, but I didn't know.
So my life, like I said, it was growing up, religious. We went to church a lot. I did a lot of chores. I wasn't allowed to play organized sports because my dad didn't see the value in it, right? He says he needs to know how to work. He's like, there's no need for him to be playing childish games.
I mean, he's not wrong. However, maybe a little
the way
balance.
he grew up, I could totally see that, right? There's no value. Like, why learn sports when you can learn how to work?
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. But that was
maybe
a big friction
balance.
point.
Maybe a little balance there.
Just a little bit. It was a big friction point between us because I really liked sports. And I was athletic naturally. And I was obviously functionally strong because of all the chores I did around the house, right? I was always working with my hands. So I was functionally strong. I was very fast. And so in PE, right? When you play in sports, like I was good at pretty much anything that I picked up. I can pick up on it pretty fast. And the coaches would always call my mom and be like, hey, your son needs to play football. Like, he's super fast, he's super strong, or he needs to wrestle.
Oh, dude, you would have been a killer wrestler.
Yeah. My son is now, right? Because I was like, son, you have a wrestler's build. Like, you are built for wrestling.
Yeah, your son.
Yeah,
he's a stud.
so yeah, she didn't. The wrestling coach is where I really wanted to go. He was like, he would be a great wrestler. He's super strong. He's light, right? Because I was skinny. And my parents were like, no, we got better things to do.
Okay. As you got older, what was it like as you got into high school? Did you kind of start to rebel and push back a little bit?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think the double-edged sword of making me such a tough kid, which my stepdad did, was at some point.
Yeah.
At one point, I stopped being scared of him. So I was still scared of him, but I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take it.
Yeah.
Right. At one point, I think it was 14. I was like, okay, well, what are you gonna do? You gonna beat me? You gonna ground me? Like, I literally became callous to any kind of punishment that he would throw my way.
Okay.
Because his punishments weren't like, oh, you're grounded for like a week or a couple days. No, it was like, you're grounded for 2 weeks to a month. And then if I did something wrong again, it was like, it just got added on. And at some point, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I became callous to the punishment. So I ran away from home. There's so many things here that we can unpack, but to shorten it up, I became a troublemaker. I started hanging around the wrong crowd. I started hanging around kids that were, the thugs in school.
Yeah.
I ended up getting in trouble. I ended up getting arrested, sent to juvie. Spent some time in juvie. And so once I got out of juvenile hall, I was on probation. So basically any little thing I did was automatic 10 days, violation of probation. So I was in and out of juvie for a little bit. Around this time, what made it worse is around this time, my dad became a CHP officer.
Oh, geez.
So
What is
here I
CHP?
am. California Highway Patrol. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he became law enforcement. So here I am being this bad kid, getting in trouble, and he's law enforcement. And listen, same thing, right? When I got arrested, I knew what was going to happen. The cops were like, hey, do you want to call your parents? And I was like, absolutely not. I was like, if you call them, they're just going to leave me here. And they're like, well, we got to call them anyways. And so we called them, and they were like, yep, you're right. They said, leave you here. I was like, yeah, I told you. They're not getting me out. They're not bailing me. They're not doing any of that. They're not lifting a finger to help me. And they didn't. They're like, you got to face the consequences. And so I remember that for my trial, or I guess for my, you go to something before you even go to trial, where you plead, you plead. And I was just like, yeah, I plead guilty. I did it. Like, I didn't even fight it. I was like, yeah, I did it, because that's the way I was raised, right? I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to lie about it. I was like, I did it. And because I just didn't get a lawyer, didn't get an attorney or nothing, I just said, hey, I did it. I ended up getting a pretty harsh punishment for what it is that I did. Luckily for me, juvenile hall was overbooked. There were too many people, too many kids there. And when I was there, the staff was like, hey, you're actually a really good kid. Because I was polite, I was polite. I was well-behaved. So they let me out early on good behavior, but they put me on probation, and they gave me a crap ton of community service hours. When I say a crap ton, I mean it was a lot. So those were my weekends, were cleaning up trash on the streets every weekend for a while. So this was a back and forth between my parents and I. There was a ton of friction between my stepdad and I, because now I had gone to juvie, right? I wasn't scared of it anymore. It actually kind of emboldened me a bit.
Oh, man.
In the sense that I'm not breaking the law anymore, right? So I'm like, that sucked. I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, and it wasn't the right thing to do.
It wasn't the right thing to do.
It wasn't who you were.
Yeah, it wasn't the right thing to do. My parents raised me better than that. So I wasn't getting in trouble in that sense, but I was getting in trouble in the sense of like, you know what? I'm going to do whatever I want when I want, right? Because what are they going to do to me? Yeah. So I was sneakier about it, though, when I left juvie. So my parents would always put me to bed early. So this is how strict they were, right? They put me to bed like at 8:30, 9 o'clock as a teenager, okay? But they went to bed early, too.
Yeah.
So what I did is I would sneak out at night. I would sneak out at night and hang out with my friends. So I would wait for them to go to bed. I'd sneak out through the window. I'd go hang out all night, and I'd come back, at 2 a.m. or whatever. And then the way I got rolled up was, this was when cell phones started to come out. And I remember my stepdad would leave his cell phone in the living room. And so I'm like, I'm gonna take that thing with me, because I didn't know how it worked, because I was an idiot. So I went into the living room, right? My parents are sleeping. I'll go in the living room. I take the cell phone with me, and I would take it out with me. So I was like the man when we would go out, because I'm the only one running around with a cell phone. And I'm like, heck yeah, let's call so-and-so. We want to get him to come out here. Let's call him up. Then the phone bill shows up. And if you remember cell phones when they first came out, they were not cheap. And so the phone bill came out, and it was enormous. And my dad obviously lost it. And then he realized very quickly, because he saw the times, like 12 a.m., 1 a.m., like these calls are being made. And so they figured it out. Long story short, I ended up going back to juvie for violation of probation. And then the judge was kind of tired of me at this point. He's like, dude, we're just going to leave you here till you're 18. And I was like, oh, that sucks. Around that time, I had built a good relationship with one of my teachers. He was I think it was called like life skills, where they teach you how to write a check, right? They teach you how to balance your checkbook and do all these pay taxes. They show you how to do life things. I hope they still do that, by the way, but I don't think they do.
They do here in Texas.
Oh, do they? That's awesome. I don't think they do in California anymore. But anyway, so he was my teacher for that. Him and I built a awesome relationship, and because I was on probation, I had to always bring a progress report. I had to get it filled out, like, what are my grades looking like? And he was like, what are you doing this for? And I told him, I was like, yeah, I've been in trouble, I've been in juvie. And he goes, you don't strike me as the type of person to be in juvenile hall and do these things. And I kind of laughed it off. But he knew the judge, and he found out that they were going to just lock me up. So he talked to the judge. He's like, listen, he's a good kid. He just has a lot of friction right now at home with his stepdad. And so the judge was like, well, if you think he's such a good kid, then you adopt him and I'll give him to you. And so he did. He legally adopted me.
Wow.
For my senior year of high school, I lived with him. And the crazy thing is, I was the model child my entire senior year, because I was so scared to let him down, because I knew the enormous chance he had taken on me.
That's crazy.
Because a lot of people told him, you're nuts. You are nuts for bringing this thug into your house.
Probably everybody.
Yeah. Oh, everybody told him he was nuts. Him and his wife were nuts, but they were very religious. They had already raised all their kids, and all their kids had already grown up and been, done well. They did a phenomenal job of raising their children. Yeah. And now they brought me into their house. And so they're
doing what Christians should do, which is show love, compassion, forgiveness, have empathy, try to help people.
Yeah. And it was good for me. Listen, my parents did a lot of awesome things for me, and I don't want to take that away from them, because when I did the Jocko podcast, I didn't know there were comments on the YouTube videos, right? Because I was telling Lucas beforehand, I was still new to social media until Jamie told me. And then I was like, oh, these people comment on this? So I went back to look at the comments, and some of the comments I read were like, oh, this is child abuse, this is that. And so I want to make it crystal clear that I don't regret my childhood at all. As a matter of fact, I'm very grateful for it.
Yes.
My parents taught me a lot, but my teacher taught me something different, right? And it was like Christian side that you were talking about, like very, very empathetic, very loving, very caring. And because of that, because they showed me that side, I was so afraid to let them down that I told them straight up, like, hey, you tell me what the rules are, I'll follow them. But they were super cool about everything. They're like, you want to hang out with your friends? That's awesome. Just let us know where you are and what time you'll be home. And I'm like, well, wow, this is new. I wasn't allowed to do that before.
Yeah.
And because I had that freedom, I was very protective of that freedom.
What a unique concept, right? That's cool. All right. So what made you want to go into the military? Was it right after high school? Did you work a little bit?
Yeah. So after high school, listen, I never thought about college. It's not something that was ever talked about in the neighborhoods that we grew up in my household. It was never talked about. No one in my household, I guess my mom had in Guatemala, but it wasn't that was something talked about in our house. So I never thought about it. But my teacher was like, hey, so where are you going to go to college? And I was like, I don't know. I've never really thought about it, right? And my grades were okay, but they weren't stellar. And a lot of the schooling that I had done was in juvie.
Okay.
So it wasn't great. So I ended up going to community college only because my teacher pushed me to. And I stayed there for about a cup of coffee because I dropped out very quickly because I'm like, this is boring. This sucks. I'm not into it. I feel like I'm doing the exact same thing I just did in high school because you're doing all your prereqs, which are those useless classes that you have to take. Mm-hmm. And And of course, because I did my schooling in juvie, I placed in the idiot classes for math.
Okay.
Right.
Which is comical.
But
Considering how good you are with that stuff.
I scored in the 95th percentile in English because I read so much. Because, we didn't grow up watching a lot of TV, so I would read incessantly as a child. Like, I would read everything that I could get my hands on.
That's cool.
And because I read so much, I scored in 95th percentile in English, but, like, I think it was in, like, the 30th or 25th percentile in math. It was terrible. But anyway, so I didn't stay in community college for long. I started working construction. I started working concrete.
Oh, yeah.
In Sacramento.
Yep.
So you know the deal with that, dude.
Oh,
It's 110 degrees. It's hard work.
Yeah, laying rebar, bending rebar, cutting
digging
rebar,
the ditches,
doing
all the rebar. And then at one point they ended up...
You were a hod carrier at the beginning where they're just like making you run with wheelbarrows full of concrete everywhere and the brick and block and all.
No, so I was actually the ditch digger.
Oh, sweet.
So I was with pick and shovel, just digging those ditches. And then at one point they made me, they gave me the jackhammer.
Which at first you're like, this is going to be great.
At first I thought it was going to be cool until I did it for the first day. And dude, my hands were just like frozen solid at the end of the day.
90-pound jackhammer, or is it a 60-pounder, you think?
It was a 90-pound. That thing was legit because I was breaking big blocks
90-pound jackhammer. People don't understand how you're literally, it weighs 90 pounds.
Yeah.
Like you're moving a 90-pound piece of equipment around.
Yeah, it was a big
lifting it all day.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then trying to control it as it bounces up and down.
The overhead ones were the best. Where you're like,
yeah, it was terrible. But even then, like after I got off work, I would still go box. So right around that time, I took up boxing.
Oh, sweet.
So I kept pretty busy. And then, it was right around that time where I realized, the more I work, the more I get paid. And because I had the childhood that I didn't really, have a ton of hobbies or hang out a whole lot. So I was like, well, what do I do with my Saturday and Sunday? I was like, I guess I'm going to just go find a job to fill those days up too. So I did. I found a job at Long's Drugs.
Oh, yes.
And so I worked at Long's Drugs on the weekends. So I was working 7 days a week. And I didn't know any different, right?
You enjoyed it.
I enjoyed working. And so right around that time at Long's Drugs, they used to rent out VHS tapes.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people are going to know what VHS is. Maybe the younger generation may not know, but...
Yeah. No, we'll have...
Our demo will know what a VHS is.
Yeah. So I would always rent a movie out, on Saturday night when I would go to work. At the end of my shift, I would go rent a movie, watch it at home. And one day, I picked up the movie Navy SEALs.
Yes.
With Charlie Sheen.
Guess who at this table has not seen that movie yet?
No way.
I'd never even heard of it until JP brought it up.
Oh, my God.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
That's like our Top Gun, dude.
No, I've seen that.
I'm gonna get him up to speed soon. So you watched Navy SEALs.
So I watched Navy SEALs,
Let's start watching it right
I
now.
remember thinking like, oh man, these guys are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I had heard about them so I had a teacher in high school who was in the Navy, and he would always talk about Navy SEALs and how awesome they were, right? But it never really clicked. I was like, oh, that's cool. I never really thought about it. But then I was like, hey, wait a minute. These are the guys that Mr. Pryor would talk to me about. And he had like an enormous amount of respect for them. And so I was like, I wonder if this is a real profession and what I have to do to be able to do this. So I went to the library and I started doing my research, and I realized like, oh my God, this is a real profession. I went to the recruiter's office. I told them I want to be a Navy SEAL, and you know how it is. They're like, absolutely. Yep. You'd make a great Navy SEAL. Because they know that there's about a 90% chance that you're not going to make it.
Yep.
And so he was more than happy to sign me up for the Navy.
Yeah, because back in the day, recruiters, I don't know during your time frame if they did, but I know my time frame, they got bonuses.
Oh, I didn't know that.
If you sign somebody up with a SEAL contract, they got a nice little bonus.
Oh, I didn't have a SEAL contract.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
He sent me as a boatswain's mate. He signed me up as a boatswain's mate. For those of you who don't know what the boatswain's mate is, they're kind of like the jack of all trades on the ship. But if you're
awesome.
low ranking, you are getting some. It's hard work.
Boatswain mates are incredible. It's an incredible rate.
Yeah.
Very, very much needed job in the military, in the Navy. The old school boatswain mates are. Those
they're
guys
tough.
Are gangsters. They're tough.
They're tough, dude.
Super tough.
It's a hard job.
Old school guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
However, not what I
wanted to do. And so he was like, "Hey, I need you to go to boot camp early." And I was like, I'll go early if you change my job. Because at that point, I went and looked up what boatswain's mates did, especially early on in the career. So I was like, I need to change my job. So he's like, cool, I'll make you a corpsman. And I was like, what's that? He's like, it's a medic. So when you get out, you're like a registered nurse. So you're going to have some serious skills that you can. Yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh, cool. I'll have some skills to lean back on when I get out. That sounds good. I'll do that. And so I joined the Navy as a corpsman. I shipped out a couple days later, not knowing that recruiter had kind of screwed me over in a couple ways. The first way is this. At the time, it was the only year that they did it. Corpsman was not a SEAL rating. Yeah, it was the only year that they did it because they wanted you to do your time with the Marines first. If you want to be a corpsman with the SEAL teams, you have to be a corpsman with the Marines first. So they wouldn't let me go directly to BUD/S. 1. 2, I wasn't a citizen. I didn't know that. So he knew that.
Oh my gosh.
So he sent me to the Navy. So I try out at boot camp, right? You know they have the tryouts, like who wants to try out to be a Navy SEAL? Of course, everybody raised their hand. Yep. I raised my hand. And here's the other thing. I didn't know how to swim very well. Like, listen, I knew how to get from point A to point B, but I never swam competitively. I've never taken any swim lessons. And so when I took my first test, I failed it. I failed it miserably. And I remember being very discouraged. By the way, at this point in time, I don't know that I can't go because I'm a corpsman. I don't know that I can't go because I'm not a citizen, because they didn't ask all those things. So my RDC, who was like your drill instructor in boot camp, they loved me. They loved me. And so they were like, we'll give you one more try. We'll let you try out one more time. So I got in the pool, and I remember thinking, there's like 50 people in this pool. There's no way this one SEAL motivator is counting everybody's laps. So we start swimming. Once again, I'm way behind, bro. I'm listening to the times, though, now, and I'm realizing I'm not going to make it again, not even remotely close. So at one point, I just stood up at the end of the pool, and I was like, I'm done. Like, I finished my laps. He's like, cool, get out and get ready for push-ups and pull-ups. And I remember like, oh, that worked. And remember what I said, I was functionally very strong. Yeah. So I could do push-ups and pull-ups and sit-ups, and I could run all day long. Those were like no issue whatsoever. And so I go through the rest of it, and I go in there to fill out my paperwork, and then he says, dude, you're not a citizen. Jeez. You can't go to BUD/S. So he's like, get your citizenship, come back later, but there's nothing I could do for you here. So I ended up finishing boot camp, and I went to Corps school. And then at that time, if you're a male and you're a corpsman, there's about an 80% chance you're going to go with the Marines. And that's what ended up happening. I ended up going to a school called, back then it was called FMSS, Field Med Service School, I think is what it stands for, where they basically teach you all about the Marine Corps. They teach you about their culture, their ranks, right? They teach you how to be squared away like the Marines are. And they give you the option of being Marine Corps regulations. And if you're Marine Corps regulations, they let you have one of their uniforms. And everybody was all about it. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to be Marine Corps regs. But you have to cut your hair like they do, right? And I was the only one that was like, I opted out. I was like, I want to go Marine Corps regs. And like, why not? I was like, I just don't want to do it. And like, you get to wear their uniform. And I'm like, I have enough uniforms. Remember, this is early on in your career when you have to carry all your uniforms in that sea bag, and you've got 100 of those things. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't need another uniform. And plus, I don't want to cut my hair like that. So I ended up not going Marine Corps regs. And around that time, I ended up meeting, there was one of the corpsmen there. And this corpsman looked like a stud. I mean, he looked like a physical stud. So obviously, I gravitated towards him. Yep. And I saw that he had like some pins that not everybody else had on his chest. He had like this dive bubble and some wings. And so I started chatting with him, and it turns out he was a recon corpsman.
Oh, dang.
So I was like, oh. I was like, how do I do this? And so he's like, you got to do the tryouts. And so I was like, I want to try. And by the way, the recon tryouts back then, they were significantly harder than the test to get into BUD/S.
Yeah.
It's a tough test. But once again, I still haven't learned how to swim. Yeah.
I mean, they're legit.
Yeah, their entry-level test to get into recon was way harder than the one to get into BUD/S. Once again, I failed to swim because I didn't know how to swim. But they were super cool about it, and they were like, hey, listen, man, you're obviously in good shape. Just finish out the rest of the the tryout. And but like I said, it's tough, dude. It's like you got to do 20 pull-ups, you got to run 3 miles in 18 minutes, like you got to do all these mountain climbers, you got to do a ruck run with weight. I mean, there's a lot, and I did it all. And it was me and one other guy that passed. And they're 40% manned at the time. And they're like, we can't get a lot of guys to pass this test. You obviously have the abilities, you just can't swim. So how about this? How about we teach you how to swim, and we'll give you another shot at it. So
it's a good deal.
It's a good deal. They started teaching me how to swim, and at one point I went into his office because I was doing my dive physical, and I let it slip out that I was like, yeah, I'm just going to do this until I can get to buds.
Oh, shoot.
And you just see his entire expression change, right? This guy that I'd looked up to this whole time that I had been at this school, he's like, you want to do what? I said, I was just doing this for my 3 years, and I got to be with the Marines until I get to go to buds. And he grabs my paperwork, he crumples it all up, he throws it in the trash. He said, you will never be a recon corpsman. He said, get out of my office. We're done here. And so I'm like, okay. So I end up going to the regular Marines. I went to 2-4, grunt battalion, 2-4. And I ended up showing up late, so I missed their entire workup. So I went directly on deployment with them.
Wow.
And we did, I think it's called the UDP. We did it to Japan.
Okay. And
when I was in Japan, there was another guy who joined the battalion, who's a corpsman as well, and he was a BUDS dropout. And I told him I want to go to BUDS, and then he goes, yeah. He's like, I just quit, whatever. And I was like, hey, do you know how to do this combat side stroke that they talk about? And he goes, yeah. I was like, teach me.
So a BUDS dropout that was actually honest about them dropping out. He didn't make up some story like,
no,
the instructors didn't like me and I fought them. And you're like, yeah, okay.
I made it to third phase, but I knew too much.
Yeah, I made it to third phase. I realized I didn't actually want to be a SEAL, and I fought all the instructors. Yeah, you're like, okay, so you quit day one? Cool.
Yeah, he was pretty honest about it. So he taught me how to swim.
Dude, that's awesome.
And from that point on, bro, I was in the pool 3 times a day. Like literally, I would wake up early in the morning. I would go to the pool. At my lunch break, I would go to the pool. At the end of the day, I would go back to the pool. And that's how I learned how to swim proficiently.
Yeah.
So we came back from that deployment. And when I got back from the deployment, I got a call from a chief at the recon battalion. And he's like, hey, man, I saw that you passed the screener, but you didn't come over here. What's the deal with that? And I told him, I was like, hey, I want to go to BUDS. It's not what I want to do. And so he says to me, I'll tell you what. If you come over here, he said, if you come over here, just try it out. If you don't like it, I'll send you to BUDS myself. And he goes, and plus when you come over here, you get some BAH. Now, for those of you who don't know, that's basic allowance for housing.
Yep.
It's a huge deal in the military, especially as an E3.
Bro, it is a lifestyle changer.
Yes, because you go from, you're not living in the barracks anymore. Now you actually get, extra money to find an apartment to live out in town. And so I was like, oh, BAH? I was like, absolutely. So that's
amazing what people in the military will do for a little extra money.
An extra $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's how I ended up at 1st Recon Battalion.
Dude, that's awesome. Did you ever tell him what the other guy had told you?
No.
No?
But you know what's funny is once I had been at Recon Battalion for a while, that corpsman walked into the aid station when I was there, and he looked at me, and we kind of locked eyes for a little bit. And I was like, oh, what's his reaction going to be? And he kind of just smiled a little bit and just kept walking.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And what's funny is him and I actually became friends later on.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the way it should be. But I was always curious.
Yeah, I ran into him again. It's a small community.
Yeah. Okay. When do you go to BUDS? What's that like?
So I went to BUDS, I think, the end of 2002.
Okay.
And listen, I was prepared for BUDS. I had already been with the Marines and with Recon. I knew how to, do over the beach swims. I knew how to swim with a ruck. Like I knew how to do all of that stuff. Yeah. It prepared me. So BUDS wasn't an enormous challenge. Listen, it's still hard.
Yes.
But I was about as prepared as anybody could be. I had zero excuses as to why I wouldn't make it.
Awesome.
But I did get rolled back. I got compartment syndrome during Hell Week. So I got rolled back into 246.
Really? Where?
On my shin. I got compartment syndrome.
My dad just got out of the hospital for the last 2 weeks because of that.
Yeah.
They had to completely flay his leg open.
Yeah, so I was right at the point where they were like, or we may have to cut your entire leg open,
Yeah.
but instead they got these enormously thick needles and they would just put them into my leg and they were just draining the blood.
Yeah, he
from
was.
there.
They told my dad he was 90 minutes away from losing his leg.
Oh my God.
That's
Yeah.
how bad it was. Yeah. Well, I just helped my mom get him home from the hospital 4 days ago.
Wow.
He was there for 2 weeks. Like, had like 7 different blood transfusions, I think.
Oh my God.
Because that's how
Yeah,
much
that's
blood he
terrible.
lost. I mean, I didn't realize that they fillet your leg open. I'm
Yeah,
thinking
that's-
like you, like just drain it.
Yeah.
And then I go to help my mom get down there. He had emergency surgery. She calls me freaking out. So I go down there and, I'm helping him transfer to his room and everything. And I'm like, okay, his leg's wrapped up. I can't see anything. And I'm kind of in my mind, I'm
Yeah.
like,
He let it go too far.
oh,
And because I'm a corpsman.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm a corpsman.
oh yeah.
I recognized it right away.
Wow.
Like, I recognized it right away. Like, I would press on my leg and my muscle, and it was like Play-Doh. It would stay, and I knew immediately I had compartment syndrome.
Well, here's what's crazy is he went to the hospital and they sent him home with antibiotics.
What?
And then the next day, his leg was so bad, my mom's like, no. And
Yeah.
she brought him back to a different hospital.
Oh, that's terrible.
And anyways, yeah, so I didn't know you had compartmental syndrome. I thought it was going to be needles. So he goes, has a surgery. The next day, they're cleaning out the dressings. My mom sends me pictures, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I mean, it looked like some of our buddies that have lost their legs, like his leg completely flayed open. I didn't realize you had that in buds.
They told me that. They're like, hey, if we can't get this pressure to go down, we're going to have to cut your leg open. But they were able to just by these needles were enormous, just draining it. But yeah, I got rolled back into 246, and then from that point on, no issues.
Yeah.
The land warfare phase was awesome for me.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Recon Marine. You're
Yeah,
like,
so
"Hey, guys, let me show you how this is done.
Basically, and it was awesome because they knew who I was at that point because one of the second phase instructors was best friends with my LPO at 1st Recon Battalion, so he told them, hey, one of my guys is coming to Buds. So they knew who I was.
That's cool.
Who I was. And
Well, it can be good. For you, it was.
yeah, at first, obviously, they gave me a hard time, and then obviously they're like,
Yeah, he squared away.
yeah, he's good to go. So it was funny because they would grab my weapon, and they would be like, give me your weapon, Mendez. Because they would be like, this is how you clean an M4. Because for most guys, this is the first time, right? Taking an M4 apart, cleaning it. And in Marine Corps, you know the deal, dude.
Dude, white
those things
glove.
have to be freaking spotless.
Yeah.
So they would do that for land navigation. I scored like 100 on the test. I finished like hours. Did you do it too?
Heck
Awesome.
yeah, bro. Land nav was one of my, and it still is one of those God-given gifts. Like,
Yeah.
I can you put me anywhere, I kind of know, like, I'll be like, all right, cardinal directions. I know where I need to get going. Land nav was awesome. I would finish those courses so fast where
Yeah.
you're like, well, I'm not going back near the instructors. I'm going to camp out here and take a
Dude,
nap.
I finished hours before we were due. And I remember having the same dilemma. Like, I'm done. But if I go back, that's a lot of alone time with me and the instructors.
I was like, nope.
So I actually waited about an hour and I did it. I went back early. I was like, I'm going to show off. I was an idiot, right? My ego.
How'd that work? Do you get some special treatment, or were they cool?
No, they were
with you?
cool about it, actually. They were like, oh, awesome. They're like, we figured you'd be the first one. And I was like,
Okay,
yeah, I was
cool.
actually done an hour ago.
But I
And they
was
were
hiding
like,
over on that ridge line.
Yeah. And they were cool about it. They're like, hey, you want a beer? And I don't drink beer. I
Yeah.
don't like the taste of it. And so, but I was like, yes, even though I hate the taste of beer, because I would just want to be cool.
Oh, for
yeah,
sure.
I'm not going to tell them like, no, thank you. So I was like, yeah, I'll take it. And I was like, delicious. Not really, but they were cool about it. We hung out. We just chatted.
That's really cool.
But
yeah, when you're in third phase, it's really cool to see that transition and shift. I mean, you're definitely still getting the Buds instructor beat down when it. I had Ben Wallach, who I went through Buds with on the podcast. Actually came out last week, and we were talking about how, same thing, coming back from low post, so land navigation, and they were checking guys' gear, and they found like Copenhagen and guys' rucksacks, and they brought us down this lake in the wintertime and beat us down there. And so
Yeah.
there's still a little bit of that, but so land nav was something that you've always enjoyed.
Not
Or
always.
no,
When I
I'm
was
sorry.
at the Marines, I actually had a hard time with it.
Really?
I actually thought I was going to fail out of the basic reconnaissance course.
Wow.
Dude, I could not find those. Dude, it's a PVC pole in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I was a city boy. Remember that? So
Yeah.
I actually had a really hard time because I was doing everything dead reckoning, right? So I was breaking through brush. I wasn't finding anything. They were like, dude, you're going to get dropped if. And then for whatever reason, at one point, I woke up one morning and it all just made sense to me. The map just made sense to me.
That's cool.
And once it clicked, then it was easy for me.
Okay.
Like once I learned how to read that map, I was like, oh, this is actually really easy. I don't have to break through that brush.
Nope.
I can just go to that terrain feature right there, and then I could just go this way. And yeah, and so I started doing attack points, right? Instead of
Sweet.
the Dead Reckoning where they show you where you grab your compass and you're literally just walking a straight. That was miserable.
Yeah.
And so once I learned how to do that, yeah, I became really good at land nav.
Yeah. You know, I've talked about this before. I briefly would mention it at the muster, but I've also talked about it working with clients about how just that ability is so applicable in life. Instead of just like, okay, point A to point B, head down, move forward. While the hard work aspect is important there, but having the ability to read the environment, the terrain is important to be able to navigate those problems and those challenges in life, and navigating business and relationship with your wife and kids and all those things. So, all right. So you make it through BUD/S. You go to SEAL Team 1. What was it like being a new guy?
Awesome.
Yeah.
I loved the teams.
Yep.
And I don't have to tell you, we came in at the most amazing time. We've got awesome training. People are actually going overseas and doing what we're training to do. It was everything I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
You know, you're just traveling to different cities. You're training. You're getting some awesome training in. You're doing CQC. You're driving. You're doing land warfare. I mean, I loved it. And half of our platoon was new guys at the time, right? So, and we had a really awesome group of new guys, man. We were pretty squared away, so we didn't probably get the hazing that maybe a lot of other new guys got.
Yeah.
Because I think the older guys were like, oh, these guys are squared away. I mean, I'll just throw some of the names out there: Aaron Vaughn, Brad Kavner, myself. You know, I'd say some of the guys they're still in, but we had an awesome group of guys, and that platoon to this day is still my favorite platoon that I've done, just because the quality of guys that were there was just amazing.
That's awesome. So you had a really good experience as a new guy, and I think that's the way it should be. I mean, hopefully it is for the most part. I mean, yeah, there's going to be, like you said, the new guy hazing things in the SEAL teams. There's a time and place for that, but it's I like hearing that story because it's an understanding like, hey, if your guys are squared away, treat them like adults. If you got to tune them up, okay.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't apply to the business world, so be very careful taking what I'm saying and going and applying it to your work. But in the SEAL teams, there's a time and place, and that I would say that would be like the leadership lesson is like there's a time and place. You know, like there's a time and place for micromanagement, and there's a time and place for like, hey, just go figure it out. And you were treated like an adult, and therefore you guys were able to perform.
Our leadership was a mess, but the guys were amazing. Like we went through 3 chiefs that first platoon. And the last chief we got, I think he was just like, hey, I'm just here to hold it down until this is all over. Oh my God. So the leadership was terrible. But what was interesting to observe was that the guys were so great that it almost didn't even matter.
Yeah.
So
leadership amongst the ranks is important. Like, you know, Jocko talks about squad leader makes a difference. And that's what you guys had. You had, you know, fire team leaders, squad leaders, your LPO were the ones making the difference.
Yeah. And it was cool, too, because they knew that I had been with the Marines. And it was funny because Dan Luna was going to be the point man because he's the most experienced. He was the most senior guy, like sled dog in the platoon. And he comes up to me. He goes, hey, dude, you were with the Marines before, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, are you good at land nav? I said, I'm excellent at land nav. He goes, cool. You could be the point man because I don't want to be the point man because I'm going to get us lost.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I got to do point man duties as a new guy, which is very rare. I mean,
that's a big responsibility.
Yeah, it's a huge responsibility for a new guy. So I had a great experience my first platoon.
Cool. How many deployments do you have?
With the teams or total?
Just in total.
So let's see. I've got 2 with the Marines, and then I've got 7 with the teams.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. 9 deployments. Any defining moments when you were overseas on any of your deployments?
I would probably just say my very first gunfight, right, was the very first, like, eye-opener. because you don't realize how fast things are moving.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is I got in a gunfight like on my very first stop, like literally my very first stop. We hadn't even been in country for like 24 hours, and it was actually a pretty cool op. Like it was a helo insert, 3-4 click patrol, and I was the point man. And so I remember getting dropped off in the helo, and I remember being in the helo and looking around. Think about it, this is my first time. I'm in Iraq. I'm looking around. All my buddies have like their NVGs on, their night vision goggles on. They got their
green
weapons.
glow.
Yes, all you see is green eyes, and I'm just remember looking around, thinking like, "Wow, I'm here.
Yes.
Like I'm here. This is real. This is happening." And I was so excited. But then when we landed, I'm like, I totally changed modes. Like, okay, I got to focus because I'm the point man. I don't want to let my team down. Last thing I was so scared to take him to the wrong target and get lost. That was my biggest fear.
Very valid fear.
Right? Because, I mean, yeah, it's a huge responsibility. But anyways, I got us to the right target. As we were coming up, there were some guys outside. And that was the first time I got to shoot somebody. And it just moved so fast. And you ever see like those memes where it says like what I think I look like, what I really look like?
Yes.
Yeah.
So like afterwards watching like the footage from the drone, I'm like, oh, I wasn't as cool and as smooth as I thought I was. Because in my head, I'm like, yeah, I think I did good, right? But dude, I did, yeah. Yeah, but listen, as time goes on, things, I don't have to tell you, things slow down.
Yeah.
Things slow down for you.
So it's funny. The reason why I'm laughing as you say that is you're being hypercritical of yourself because you're a humble dude, and that's what. And also, we have the culture of debriefing and being critical of ourselves and doing honest self-assessments in the SEAL teams. Anybody outside of those teams watches that video, they're gonna be like, "That's the coolest thing ever." I promise you. And even me being in the teams because I wasn't there, and it's you, and I'm watching me and my boys. I'm like, bro, this is legit. Like I would show everybody, and you're like, it actually wasn't that good or cool.
Yeah.
Which is cool that we have the ability to do that. But as you were saying, the more you did it, the more things kind of slowed down. And it was just kind of part of it. So we meet each other at TRADET, working for Jocko.
Yeah.
And that was awesome. A lot of fun stories.
Yeah.
Louisville, Kentucky. Man, running that training in Louisville, Kentucky was incredible. And also the training out at Shaw's, all of our close quarters combat training and all the urban warfare training that that we were able to do. When I remember there was one point I was the LPO of Salk, and I remember you coming in, and I just remember like your attitude. You were super positive. You were just like, I don't care, I'll do whatever. Like I want to work. Like you always had that like, I don't care, I'll do whatever. And I remember at first like there was a few times where you're like, I don't care. I kind of was like, it took me off, like put me back a little bit, not in a bad way, but I was just kind of like, what do you mean you don't care? Like it's not like a common thing for guys to be like, hey, I really don't care. Like I just do whatever. And I remember one time you were wanting to go on leave, and you came to my desk and you had some paperwork, and I had like the calendar, and I had it mapped out for all like the different guys who were like I kind of had it color coded with my different highlighters and everything for the guys. And I remember you going, bro, thank you so much. And like, you were just happy, like for whatever it was that we were trying to figure out. And I'm like, yeah, dude, awesome. Cool. Boom, whatever. And you and I always had that really good working relationship, and then that developed into a friendship of us, going and grabbing dinner together. And then, just back in San Diego, cause on the road, it's like, you kind of do dinner with the guys whether you like them or not, because you boom. Sure. But then it was like outside of work, it was like, hey, we're gonna have some fights at the house, and I got to meet a lot of your Team 1 buddies. And I remember being thankful because it was you and Aaron being kind of introduced into that good old boy group of guys from SEAL Team 1, and you guys were all a bunch of hard workers, and that's how I met Brad Kavner and Dan Luna, and just a bunch of other dudes that are still in that I consider to be absolute rock stars, from our community. When we were working at TRADET, what were some of the highlights for you working for Jocko, being able to do what we did in the teams? Because for a while, going to the training command wasn't a thing guys wanted to do. And it's not like you wanted to go there, because guys want to be in platoons. Good SEALs want to be in platoons, but also good SEALs realize like, hey, there's also this obligation for us to give back to our community and go instructor and teach. What were some of the takeaways that you had while running training as an enlisted SEAL?
Oh man, there's so many. You're absolutely right. I did not want to go to TRADET. And I actually had that conversation with Jocko when I first got there. And you know how Jocko is. He's very good at explaining the why.
Yep.
So he's like, hey, listen, I get it. You want to stay in a platoon, but the job you're about to take, it's a very important job. We're getting all our boys ready to go to war. It's a very important job. And once he put it to me that way, I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, there's a purpose here. But I was still young and immature. And I would say that my time at TRADET was probably, as crazy as it sounds, the most defining moment of my or period of my career, because I learned so much.
Yep.
First of all, I learned that I wasn't as good as I thought I was. Right?
Yes.
You know, I thought I was going to be a good instructor because I was good at the subject matter. And I thought that that's all you needed to be. And I didn't realize that I actually wasn't a good teacher. I was very impatient. I lacked a lot of empathy. And I could have been such a better instructor had I just had that.
Yeah.
And having the opportunity to watch guys like Jocko debrief, I realized, like, oh, wow. Like, he's very patient with them, even though they made mistakes. Like, he was very, and I was very impatient.
You and I were.
You and I both were very impatient. And I think it's because a lot of these skills, they came very naturally to us. I think so, right?
Yes.
I think the house, as I looked at it, or just all the weapons manipulation,
Just made sense.
it came super natural to both of us. And I couldn't understand for the life of me why someone couldn't keep their finger off the trigger or put it on and off safe. Like, dude, like, it's second nature. Like, why aren't you doing this, right? So I was very impatient. I wasn't a good instructor in that sense. I also learned a lot about leadership by being able to observe so many different people go through training. And listen, you're observing it from a completely detached perspective, right? You've got no skin in the game. You're watching it. So you're making all these, you're watching all these mistakes being made, but you're also watching some good stuff happen too. And you're taking mental notes of all these things and realizing, like, hey, this works, this doesn't. I just learned a ton at TRADET. And I think that I became a much better team guy after leaving. Just because it's one thing to do it, but it's another thing to do this skill, teach it, and then you go back and do it again, right? And you're a practitioner again, because you just know so much more. You've seen so many other things and so many different angles. It was awesome. I loved mine. Now looking back at my time at TRADET, I loved that time there because I grew a lot during that period of time.
Yeah, we all did, and you kind of had to stay at TRADET because the leadership also wasn't messing around there. It's like, hey, we understand the importance of this role. You're literally preparing guys in our community, our brothers, our roommates, our best friends to go to war so that they can come home.
Yeah.
And if guys didn't take that serious, they were either their attitudes and their mindsets were adjusted, or it was like, hey, boom, we're done with you. And that's why, guys would go to recruiting duty and other stuff, which is great. We need that. But like, you could definitely tell the instructors that wanted to be at TRADET to make a difference, and the ones that were there that just they didn't really take it serious. So you became so you got selected for the Seaman to Admiral program, which is awesome. Jocko went that route. Johnny Kim went that route. You were selected to go to that. I know it's a hard thing to get into and to be selected. Were you excited? Were you kind of like, wait, what did I do? You were shocked.
I was shocked.
Okay.
And so I put in for the Seaman Admiral. I put in for the medical program to become a doctor.
I remember.
So I didn't just do the Seaman Admiral. I did like the doctor one, which is why I was like, if they're picking guys like Johnny Kim, why in the world would they pick me? Right? So I literally turned in my package, not expecting anything, and I completely forgot about it. And then I remember being on the plane. I forget who it was. It might have been Dan Fowles called me, and he says, hey, bro, did you see the results? I'm like, the results for what? He's like, dude, you got picked up for that program. I'm being serious when I said I totally forgot about it. I was like, what program? He's like, that doctor program, bro. You're going to school. I'm like, really? I was like, dude, you're messing with me. And I didn't believe him until I saw the message myself. And I was shocked. Because, listen, there's a lot of talented people. And this is like, you're competing against the entire Navy. This isn't just the teams. You're competing against the entire Navy. So, yeah, that was my reaction, was shocked. And a little bit like a little bit scared too, because I remember thinking like, I don't know if I'm smart enough to do this. Like I may have bitten off way more than I could chew. So those were the two emotions that I had going through my head as I did it.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, so you get it. You get selected, and what's the next steps for you?
So I ended up going to the Naval Science Institute, I believe is what it stands for. It's called. It's NSI, where they teach you how to be an officer.
Okay.
Right? It's like
Yeah.
a shortened officer candidate school, but for prior enlisted, so it's not as harsh. I ended up going there, and then from there you end up checking into your school. So I ended up going to the University of San Diego just because it was super convenient, right? I didn't want to leave San Diego. Johnny Kim had gone there. Jocko went there. So I was like, cool, I'm just going to do what they do, right? And it was a great school, by the way.
Yeah, it's a
really, really good school. I started the pre-med program, but I didn't realize that the school was so expensive. It's a private Catholic school. And so the Navy covers $10,000 of the tuition, but the tuition was like 40-something thousand a year. So I had another 30-something to cover, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't want to reach into my GI Bill just yet.
I thought they covered all of it.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a private school. It'll cover all of a public school, right? Because a public school
Yeah.
will probably be under 10 grand, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, because
Yeah.
everyone that went to SDSU was like, yeah, it covered the whole thing. So I had to find other ways to make up the rest of it. And they had a really good program there where they had parking services.
Oh, yeah.
And if you did parking services, like they covered the rest of your tuition. So I did the math. It was like this insane amount per hour that I was getting paid, right, for the tuition. So I did it. So it was my time in school was probably one of the worst times of my career, because I was taking anywhere from 18 to 21 units a semester. I was working. I had to do the ROTC program. So I had to report to ROTC. So think about it. I'm waking up at like 4:30 in the morning. I'm doing ROTC in the morning. I'm doing the drills and the PT and everything else. I'm going to class. I'm working during lunch. I'm going back to class. My classes get out at like 9:30, 10 p.m. I'm doing homework all night. So I'm sleeping like 2 hours a night. It was miserable.
Yeah.
It was miserable. And I really didn't enjoy pre-med at all. I remember going to these chemistry classes and being like, this sucks. Like, I don't know what this molecule is doing. All right. I have no clue what this thing is doing. I just hated it. And, right around that time, I started also looking at the fine print of the program. And the fine print of the program was like, hey, you owe 5 years for your undergrad. Then you go to med school. You owe 4 years for that, and then you have to do your residency, and you owe year for year for that. So I started calculating the math, and I'm like, dude, I'm not going to be able to get out of the Navy till I'm like 50-something years old. And so, yeah, I'd be a doctor, but I'm not getting paid like a doctor,
Yeah.
right? Because the Navy has you, right? You owe them time, and I'm thinking, that's when I start thinking to myself, like, I don't know if this is what I want to do. In all honesty, I didn't choose that path because it was a passion of mine. I just chose it because I thought it would be a good job to have when I got out, and I could be with my family a little bit more. But I realized that being a doctor is something you have to be passionate about, I think.
I would hope so.
Yeah, you would hope so. And I realized that I wasn't passionate about it. And right around that time, I started going to some events for the Navy SEAL Foundation, and I started meeting some individuals. And I met some bankers in the finance world. And they seemed to be doing really well for themselves, like really well for themselves.
Yeah.
And so I started asking some questions like, hey,
That checks out.
how much education do you have? Like, what did you do to get here? They're like, oh, I just got an MBA. And I'm like, how long is that thing? They're like, 2 years. And I'm like, no kidding. I'm like, that's a lot shorter than med school. So without telling anybody, I changed my major to finance. Oof. I changed my major to finance, and I loved it.
I didn't do the oof because of finance, but did you ruffle some feathers?
Oh, I for sure ruffled some feathers.
Okay.
Because, they have like check-ins every now and then to see how you're doing. And I had my check-in, and they're like, all right, how's it going? Like, what med schools are you looking to apply to? And I was like, I'm not going to go to med school anymore. I'm actually a finance major now. And they were not happy about it. And so they said, yeah, we're going to send you to the fleet. For those of you who don't know what the fleet is, it's basically they send you to the regular Navy to be on a ship somewhere. And I said, no, I want to go back to the teams. And they're like, no, you're going to a ship. And so I made some phone calls.
Yeah.
You know, at that point in
And
time,
who
I've
was
been
saying
well
that they were
connected.
going to be able to do that to you?
The officers at the ROTC.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah. And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. I spent, 13 years in the teams. Like, why would you do that? What a waste of training.
Yeah.
And so I made some phone calls, and they were like, yeah, that's stupid. But you're still going to have to go through the process. So I still had to interview. I still had to go through the screener. So I went through the process just like everyone else to try to get a slot, and I ended up getting one. So I ended up getting back into NSW as an officer.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you should go back through the process. Rightfully so.
Yeah,
as an
I
officer.
didn't mind that at all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
that
didn't mind
makes
at all.
sense. But for somebody to say, like, we're just going to send you out to the Fleet Navy because you're not doing what we think we wanted you to do, that's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah, and by
That's
the way,
just a good
there's
example of
there's a
bad
clause
leadership.
in there because not everybody's going to make it, right? And there's a
Yeah.
clause in there, hey, if you don't go to med school, you don't get accepted to med school, that's fine, but you still owe us 5 years. And I was cool with that. I was
Yeah.
like, cool, I'll give you guys your 5 years for. And by the way, I finished my undergrad in like 2.5 years.
Wow.
So
How long does that normally take?
4 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what a full-time semester. I think it's 12 units is considered a full semester, and I was taking 18 to 21.
Okay. So,
Yeah,
wow.
I was doing summer school. I was doing winter break.
Yeah, it was your
spring
job.
break. Yeah, it was
your
my job.
Yeah, because you're still getting paid from the military,
Yeah,
which is an incredible little deal, right? You're getting
Yeah.
school and okay. So you come back into the SEAL teams as an officer. What was that like now? I mean, you had a lot of enlisted experience behind you. You saw good
yeah.
leaders. You saw bad leaders. What was your mindset coming back into the SEAL teams as an officer, knowing that you are now the leader of this group of men?
So I was excited because I understood the role of an officer very well.
Yeah.
Only because I had got to see it so many times. Think about it, all the time we spent at TRADET. Like, I understood what a good officer was supposed to do.
Yes.
And so I understood to just give the boys, hey, this is the mission. This is why we're doing what we're doing. Here's the parameters. Here's what we expect. Go.
Yeah.
Let them work.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to be micromanaging. I'm going to let them figure it out. I'm going to let them work. My job is not to be a shooter anymore. My job is to be up and out. And I understood that because I saw that so many times from officers at times, right, where they didn't quite understand what their role was.
Yeah. And
they got a little bit too much into the weeds. They got a little bit too much into the tactics. And you saw some friction between them and the chief. It just so happened that my chief was Matt Frost, who is awesome,
Dude,
by
he's
the way.
such a
And
good
him and I
leader,
went to
man.
Buds together, and we were at TRADET together. So we had an
Yeah.
awesome relationship.
How's he doing?
He's good. I think he's out now, which is why I mentioned his
Good.
name. Like, if he
Yeah,
was
no,
still in,
I know he's out. Yeah.
yeah,
That's good.
I'm not entirely sure what he's up to these days, but he's awesome.
Dude, I love Matt Frost.
Yeah.
Yeah, that smile, his laugh, just the way he was.
Dude,
as a
he's
human.
incredibly intelligent too. Like in terms of tactics, and he needs no help. As a matter of fact, he helped me out a lot as a young officer because I was good at the tactics side of the house, in particular the CQC and assaults side.
Yeah.
What I was not savvy on was the asset management, right? Managing all the different assets that you get during a mission. You're getting all this air assets. You're getting all these different things that you're trying to manage at the same time. I did not know how to do that, but he was a JTAC, so he understood how to do that. He taught me a lot about how to be an actual ground force commander.
That is such. Sorry.
Yeah,
I
no, it
love
was a
that.
great experience for me. And then the OIC that we had was an awesome dude. He was awesome. He taught me a lot on the administrative side of the officer because I was a terrible administrative officer, if I'm being honest. I didn't know a lot. He taught me a lot. But he was very shy and very soft-spoken on the radio. And because of that, I think the head shed got this bad impression of him in terms of like he's too timid because they would hear him on the radio, right? He wasn't good on the radio, so then they kind of switched me into that position to become the GFC. And I mean, you know me, I'm comfortable on the radio.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem speaking because we had been instructors at TRADET. And I always say, like, listen, if you were an instructor for team guys, you could be an instructor anywhere because those are the most critical group of guys that you're ever going to be in front of.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, if you're not confident and you don't know what you're talking about, you're going to get eaten alive.
eaten alive.
So you become very confident in speaking.
Yeah.
Sounds like church parishioners.
Yeah. You have to. Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. So that's why I said, like, the role at Echelon Front came very naturally for you and I think.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, I got a lot of experience as the GFC. I I just learned a lot on that particular deployment, and it was a new experience for me too, dealing with the millennials.
Oh yeah.
Right. And I'm not gonna lie, man, I fell into that trap a little bit too, where I was like, man, these guys suck.
We all did.
Yeah.
Every human falls into that trap. And the SEAL teams is no different. I think it's even a little worse in the SEAL teams.
Yeah. I was like, man, these guys suck. They're soft. They're entitled. I'm like, they're just pansies. And then I realized, you know
attacked.
what? They're mine.
Yep.
They're my platoon, whether I like it or not. Yeah. And so, but now I'm older, right? I'm much older now, so I understand better the power of relationships. So I just started building a good relationship with them, and I realized that I was actually in a really good spot as the officer because I don't have to be the LPO who's the whip.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't have to be the whip, but I could be that, hey, you know, mentoring side, build a good relationship with them, have a good influence over them. And they understood who I was. They understood that I was prior enlisted. So they would listen, I think, a little bit more than they would to, say, maybe like a junior officer right out of the Naval Academy.
Yeah.
And so it was cool having the influence around the new guys. I'm still friends with them, a lot of them to this day. Like, we still chat on the phone. And
that's cool.
So I realized that instead of criticizing them, that I needed to just build a better relationship with them in order to have that influence over them.
Yeah. One of those new guys, didn't he pass away recently?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. I remember that happened. And, like, I mean, yeah, that was one of your new guys, man.
Yeah, that was devastating to hear because I think that you can relate to this. I thought it was over.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of the guys that you and I came up with, they're either, you know, senior chiefs, master chiefs. They're at a high level where they're not operating anymore. So I thought, okay, I don't have to go to any more funerals.
Yeah.
So I got to be honest with you, man. Like, when I got the news and I'm like, it's Team 3, I'm like, oh my God, please don't let it be someone I know. And when I saw the names, I'm just, you know, the feeling, dude, it's just a gut punch. And I'm like, dude, I thought this was over. I thought I wouldn't have to go to another one of my buddies' funerals. So yeah, it sucks, man.
Yeah, I felt that way when I got out, you know, because there was still like a few guys, and like I remember when you called me, to tell me that Brad had passed away.
Yeah.
Because the phone calls that I had gotten from you when I was out was, hey man, I'm coming into town.
Yeah.
Would love to see you.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go grab some food, some drinks, like whatever. We'd go just hang out, and I would come hang out with your guys, and we'd go out to dinner, and we'd go out, and it was cool being around team guys again. And that was always a phone call that I got from you. It's like, hey, you were just as friends. And then when you I just remember like being excited seeing that you called. And I remember I was walking out to my car. I just got done with work, and then when I heard your voice, and when I heard you like, hey man, and I was like, oh, it's another one of those phone calls.
Yeah. I think you've gone through it so many times, right, that you know when you get that phone call, you immediately know in the first couple seconds, like, all right, who is it?
Yep, who is it?
Yeah. That one was particularly devastating for us, I think.
Yeah, Brad was, I mean, that was just because of who Brad was. That one, and you even more so. Like, I had the honor of, Brad was my last roommate that I lived with before I got out of the SEAL teams and moved. And that was because we became even closer after Aaron was killed. And I got to know Brad because of you and Aaron at TRADET. And because you guys were all super close, and Aaron and Brad was super close. And because of your friendship and Aaron's friendship with Brad, like, I was able to develop that friendship with him. And then the other guys like Wink and other guys that, from the Team 1 guy, and Luna. And then, Aaron passed away, and then it was shortly after that Brad had me move in with him, and he had that, the 2-bedroom place in Coronado. It was just him there, and it was just like, worked out well, and then got out, and then and so I was always curious of what that, like, how did you take that, knowing that those were your new guys, and then years later you're out, and then you get the call that. Or you don't get the call, but you find out that it's one of your guys that was new when you were an officer.
Dude, you just go through so many different emotions. The first one is, dang it, I wish I was still in.
Yep.
Right? Because for some odd reason, I think you think that you might have changed something.
Yeah.
But then my second thought was, man, I hope the rest of the guys are doing all right.
Yeah.
Because I know, what that's like. And I know a lot of the senior leadership at Team 3. And so I text them and I'm like, hey, man, I can't imagine what you're going through. And they have to stay there, right? The deployment goes on. It doesn't stop.
Everything keeps moving.
Everything keeps moving. And so my attention more kind of shifted towards them and how they were doing and trying to concentrate on, hey, if there's anything I could do back here, let me know. But yeah, it's just a variety of different feelings. And as terrible as it is to say, I think you start learning how to kind of sort through it because you go through it a few times.
Yep.
But it never gets easier.
Yeah.
It never gets easier.
It's just how you handle it.
Correct.
You're able to handle it easier and faster. It's similar to like what Jocko and Leif say at Echelon Front. At Echelon Front, we have problems, but we solve the problems a lot faster.
Sure. Yeah.
And I want to pull apart what I just said. Echelon Front, we don't have big major problems like other organizations. Yeah. But problems will start to arise. That's what I should have said. Problems will start to arise because you're dealing with humans and life, but we identify it and we solve it immediately. And then we have a culture of extreme ownership where it's multiple people trying to solve problems and boom. So the more you're around it, exposed to it and understand it, then you can solve it. And is that what you were saying in regards to like,
yes,
you're able to process it and work through it a little more efficiently and effectively.
Yeah.
The answer isn't like, oh, well, let's go get blacked out drunk.
Yes.
That used to be the answer.
That used to be the answer.
It used to be the answer.
Yeah.
You just go get blacked out drunk with a bunch of guys because, hey, that's how we honor the brotherhood. I'm not saying
and
that's
now
a
it's
bad
more
thing.
like, what can I do to help? That's where my energy
the
starts
focus
shifting.
needs to be on.
So it still hurts, but the energy is focused elsewhere in a more positive direction.
Yep, 100%. All right, so officer, you have your AOIC, OIC, you do some special reconnaissance team stuff. Talk to us a little bit about how, like, what happened when you got blown up, bro? Because I remember when you sent me the picture. When you sent me the picture afterwards, I knew you were okay.
Yeah.
And receiving that information and that picture was just gut-wrenching. Same thing. I'm like, why am I not in?
Yeah.
I could have done. Yeah, I'm going to do something to, help and explode.
Yeah. So during this time, we were there to assist the Iraqi military push ISIS or ISIL right out of the Al Anbar province, and we were doing that by being their JTACs. But we were getting mortared on and rocketed almost on an everyday basis, like where we were at. And I remember when I first got when I first came into country, right? I'm the older guy. I got all these new guys, and they have all these shelters, right? Those concrete shelters. And one of the new guys was like, "Oh, what's that for?" And I was like, "Oh, that's just in case you get mortared, right? They start, you get IDF or whatever." I was like, "Don't worry about it. You're never going to need it because these guys suck. They're not accurate at all." I had to eat my words, dude, because when we started getting mortared and rocketed, it was insanely accurate. And on one of these occasions, we were getting rocketed, and the Humvee that I was standing next to happened to get hit. And I showed you the picture, dude. That Humvee, that's an up-armored Humvee, and it was like a direct hit right through the turret. Knocked me unconscious. I don't remember a whole lot. I just kind of remember like my guys picking me up, and I just remember like having dust and dirt like all over me and in my mouth, and having the ringing in my ears, and then the corpsman was like, "Hey, dude, you've got a concussion," because I was throwing up, like I was nauseous, and then he's like, "We're gonna fly you back to Baghdad, put you on a concussion protocol." But afterwards, dude, you want to talk about God looking out for you. If you saw the shrapnel that flew past me and was like stuck into walls and stuff, I mean, this is shrapnel from the Humvee, and none of that hit any of us.
That's unreal.
That's insane.
You absolutely had your angels wrapping you guys in protection.
Yeah. Looking back at that now, I'm just like, how am I even still here? But I remember afterwards I was in Baghdad, and it definitely rung my bell pretty good. Like I remember like walking out to the showers, and I took a shower, I was walking back, and then I remember like being like, where am I? Like, I'm lost. I don't remember how to get back to my room. And then, like, when I was trying to get into headquarters, right, you've got the combo codes. This is a combo code you've pressed in multiple times, and I remember just standing there and being like, crap, I can't remember the dang code. So that's when I knew, I'm like, okay, maybe I do need to take a little bit step back. And I was there for 2 weeks, and I was fully expecting to go back to my platoon. And that's when I got the email from the Master Chief, of our friend of ours.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, bro, you're not gonna go back to your team.
DF?
Yeah. He's like, you're actually gonna stay here in Baghdad. You're gonna go to a different base, and you're gonna become the strike cell commander. And I'm like, why in the world would you pick me out of everyone to be the strike cell commander? Because I know nothing about that job. I know nothing about JTACs. For people listening that don't know what a JTAC is, that is the person in the platoon who is in charge of managing all the air assets, all the aircraft that we have. Yeah. So they go to an actual school where they learn how to manage all these aircraft. They know all the different aircraft, all the different bombs, everything that they do. I mean, it's tons of knowledge, and I knew none of that stuff. And like I say all the time, like, you would think that you would want the guy briefing that to know some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the job that I ended up doing for the rest of that deployment. For the rest of I think it was like 2.5, 3 months left of that deployment.
What would be your takeaway from that section of your deployment?
So around that time, the job of the strike cell commander was to brief a 1 and a 2-star general on these airstrikes in order to get them approved.
Yeah. And
we weren't getting them approved. We were getting about 30% of them approved. We had a terrible relationship with the general at the time, which is a Marine Corps general. And so when we would go in to brief, there was a lot of questions being asked. There was a lot of, hey, you know what, we can't approve this. I need more information. And by the way, the officer that I was replacing, he was a squared away guy. He was extremely intelligent. I mean, the guy went to Harvard and had a MBA JD.
Wow.
Yeah, and in terms of JTAC stuff, he was brilliant. Like, he was incredibly IQ smart. But he was still a JO, right? He was still a JO, and I don't know if he understood how to manage that relationship.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So he was very technically sound, but and that's when I kind of started seeing it. Like, okay, you know what? I don't have to know everything. I can bring someone in that knows the stuff that I don't know. So I actually asked for a junior JTAC. I'm like, hey, send me someone who's been to this school. They can answer all the technical questions. And I made it my focus to just basically build that relationship with that general, because it wasn't great at the time. Yeah. We definitely had strained that relationship. And so I just went out of my way to build that relationship with him. You know, I asked him, like, hey, sir, like, what are you guys trying to accomplish? What's the conventional forces? What are you guys trying to accomplish? Is there anything we could do to help you guys out? I volunteered to help clean up some of the spaces, right? Because we were all sharing a space, and you know how special operations is sometimes. We feel like we're a little better than everybody else at times, and we didn't help out with some of the collateral duties. And I was like, hey, you know what? Let's help out. We live here too. We can help out with this. And I started doing that. And throughout our conversations, I found out that he was stationed at Camp Pendleton. And that's when I was like, this is my chance to break the ice with this guy. Because I'm talking like, this guy's stoic.
Yeah.
He's a Marine Corps general, like, showing no emotions whatsoever.
And I'm sure he had probably had some bad interactions with SEALs before in the past, or other special operators where he just assumed we're all the same.
Correct.
And he's like, no, I'm a general in the Marine Corps. And he's doing, doing his job.
Yeah. So I find out he's stationed in Camp Pendleton, and so I told him, I was like, hey, sir, I was like, I love Camp Pendleton. That was my first duty station. I was like, it's beautiful out there. And he's like, why are you in Camp Pendleton? Because I'm a naval officer, an 01, by the way. So he's got to be thinking to himself,
confused.
like, dude, how are you an 01? Yeah, you've been in the Navy for what, like 5 minutes? And I don't look my age either, right? So he probably thought I was much younger. And he did. He told me, he's like, dude, I had no idea you were that old.
That's awesome.
That's a great feeling.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so I was like, yeah, I'm prior enlisted. My first duty station was as a corpsman with the Marines. And then he smiled.
Yes.
He smiled. And I always say, for people that don't know why, it's because Marines absolutely love their corpsmen.
Yeah.
They love their docs. And so him and I just started having a great conversation from that point on. We started just, really starting to bond. And then he realized, oh, I'd actually been in the Navy for 15, 16 years at that point.
Wow.
and our relationship just changed, and the dynamics inside of that briefing room completely changed. Right? He stopped asking so many questions. He started to trust us more, and he started to take our side. Because listen, when you're trying to get some of these airstrikes approved, you got some JAGs, some military lawyers in there. They're very risk adverse, and they don't want to approve these strikes. Let me tell you something. They're going to do everything in their power to not approve them. And once I had that shift of having the support from him, then the 2-star general, who was an Army general, he was on our side. And it just changed the dynamics, everything. It made life so much easier. And all it took was putting the ego aside and realizing, like, yeah, this guy's asking us all these questions because he doesn't trust us. And rightfully so, right? We've strained that relationship, and it's not his job to give me that trust. It's on me to earn it, and you earn it by being good at your job.
Yeah. And you established that trust and you maintained it. That's what's critical.
Yeah.
Is just because, like, you and this general are able to have a moment together in his office about you being a Marine, that doesn't mean, that's important, but that doesn't mean he's just going to be like, cool, good to go. You had to maintain the relationship and maintain the trust.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What pushed you to get out of the military? Other than like over 20 years of service to our nation. Thank you for that, by the way.
So at that point, I had done three straight deployments as an officer.
Okay.
And I guess there's some kind of rule where you can only be operational for so long. Gosh. So they were like, hey, dude, like, you need to take a knee. Like, you can't do any more sea duty time. And so I was like, well, okay, well, what can I do? And right around that time, one of my friends that I had done a deployment with at Team 1, he was now the commanding officer at the training detachment. And so I was talking to him. It's Bobby Ramirez, actually, who passed away not that long ago as well.
Yeah.
A phenomenal dude. But him and I were good friends, and I was emailing him while I was still overseas, and he's like, dude, come and be my XO. And I was like, cool, I love TRADET, right? So I went to TRADET, and I was going to do my time there, and then I called the detail, and I was like, hey, when can I go back to the teams? And they're like, dude, you're so junior. Because think about it, I didn't have to go through BUDS, I didn't have to go through SQT, so I literally did my first deployment as an O1, which is the lowest ranking officer in the military. Usually guys are already O2, about to make O3. And so he's like, you're way too junior. Plus you've got too much sea time right now. They're like, we are going to send you to this other admin command, and from there you're going to do another admin command, and then maybe you can do your another deployment.
It's so ridiculous.
And I was like, yeah, no, thank you. I was like, I'm ready to get out. And like I said, I've always had an interest in finance.
Yeah.
I'd always kept in touch and had a good relationship with these bankers that I had talked to in the past.
Big shocker.
So, so I was like, cool. I think I'm going to get out and become a banker or be in the finance role. I didn't know what part of finance I was going to be in just yet, but I started applying to business schools, and at that point is when I decided I think I'm going to get out.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it like running TRADET? Did you enjoy it? Or was it just different? Not like...
It was different. So when I went, I thought I was going to have like all this time to like go to all the training sites and like, observe the training, kind of like what Jocko was doing.
Yeah.
But that's Sean Glass's job. So
Yeah.
Sean Glass actually ended up being the executive officer, or sorry, the officer there. That's his job, is to go to all the training sites. And my job is to do all the admin stuff and go to all the meetings at group and handle all the troublemakers and deal with everything. So...
Which is all very important.
It's all very important, and
jobs that nobody wants to do, but needs to be done.
And I was more than happy to do it. One of the things that you were talking about earlier, and I've always thought that, I've always kind of felt that I'm not as talented as the people around me, and so the way I make up for it is I volunteer for the things that nobody else wants to do. I've always seen that as my gift to the world. Like, hey, you don't want to do it? I'll do it. And that's why I said, I don't care. I'll do it. You want me to take the trash out? I'll do it. Cool. No problem.
Yeah.
Because I've always want to bring value to the team that I'm with. And if I've got all these talented people that are way better than me, how do I find the value? I do things that nobody else wants to do.
Yeah.
And so, but I've got some joy out of it, because there were some good things that I got to do, right? Like, there were some guys that got in trouble potentially that I think, had there been someone else there, they wouldn't have been as understanding, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I was like, yeah, man, listen, I get it. I was in your shoes. I was an enlisted guy. Let's see what we get, see what we can do to get you out of this, or let's see
Yeah.
what we could do to mitigate the risk that with this.
Yeah.
So I felt like I got to do some pretty good things there too.
That's cool.
So it was good and bad, right? The job actually sucked, but there were times where I got to do something for the guys where I was like, oh, that felt good, right?
Yeah.
And I actually had the positional authority to do something for them. Oh, you're not getting this gear? Hey, let me see what I can do, right?
Dude, that's awesome.
That feels good.
Yes.
Where you're actually being able to do something for the guys. And so, yeah, that was the rewarding part of it.
Yeah. I love that you said you remembered what it was like when you were enlisted. Dude. I'm sure there's some flashes of memories of you, myself, and Aaron Vaughn on the road just being knuckleheads. Not intentionally, but just being knucklehead
Sure.
enlisted single team guys. And you're like, you know what? Before I drop the hammer, I'm going to have a little empathy because I do remember, and that's, I know you do that as a father with your son.
Yeah.
And that's the way I am with Aiden and the girls. It's like, okay, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's
Camille, my wife, she does that to me a lot with my son. She's like, what were you doing at 16? When I start getting kind of upset with my son, and I say, well, yeah, if you're comparing it to me, he's a saint, right?
Yeah.
So, okay,
valid.
point.
However, comma.
No, she's right. She's right.
Yeah, no, she is right.
Yeah.
But there is still the
Yeah, there's
aspect
still gotta
of
be some
parenting,
consequences, yeah.
and there's that. Yes, there has to be consequences for your actions. Now,
Sure.
you have a respectable young man. Your son is at least from what I see and
Yeah.
hear, he is a good kid. He does some.
He is.
You share some stories where I just kind of laugh. I'm like, yeah, he's a little knucklehead, know.
Yeah.
But
He's 16.
He's a 16-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And your wife is an amazing human. She's an amazing mother, and she is that good balance to remind you. And that's what
Yeah, she
teamwork's
is.
all about. That's what marriage is about. It's like, Amanda will remind me, and there's times I remind Amanda. I'm like, hey, honey, remember when you were the girl's age? She goes, yeah. Yes, you're right. I do. And she'll, throw it back. Because our girls are in this phase right now where, I get it. I knew this was going to happen with them, because of the boldness that they have as, doing jiu-jitsu and very bold with their faith. With that boldness comes some pushback.
Oh, yeah.
And a little bit of rebellion. And they're in this phase right now. And there's a lot of friction. And Amanda and I are just trying to be very, very patient, working
Sure.
through it and having conversations. And, it's, but our daughters, they're good. They're good kids like your kids are.
Yeah.
And so, all right. So you're going to do, so I'm willing to bet that role at TRADET helped you kind of shift your mindset to as you get older, as you get mature, as you do a lot of different things, you're seeing things from a different angle.
Oh, yeah.
Seeing things from a completely different angle, which is going to apply to your marriage, which is going to apply to parenting, what you do now at Echelon Front, being one of our leadership instructors. So how did you take all your time and experience from life growing up and the teams and apply it to becoming an investment banker?
So when I decided to become an investment banker, listen, I became obsessed with learning a technical skill. Yes. Because I truly thought no one cares about soft skills. I truly thought that. Nobody cares because, listen, I had seen enough guys get out of the Navy and the military and struggle. And so I had that mentality in my head. Nobody cares. Nobody cares that you did this many deployments. Nobody cares that you did this, that you did that you were in charge of so many people. Nobody cares. And so I was like, I became obsessed with learning that technical skill and bringing some value to whatever organization I was a part of. Ironically, the soft skills is actually what got my foot in the door, because I remember being around all these bankers or wannabe bankers, because this is an interview process. And if you don't know, investment banking is tremendously competitive. Yeah. And it's even more competitive in LA, because there are a lot of slots in New York, but there are very few slots in LA. And if you get a choice, are you going to live in LA, you're going to live in New York, most people want to live in LA, right? They have nice weather. So it's very competitive. Yeah. And I remember sitting in the interview room, and one of the interviews that they do, there's tons of interviews, by the way. Mm-hmm. They're super long. But one of them is you're in there with two of your competitors.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that they started asking was, hey, tell me about a time when this happened. Tell me about a time when you had a boss that you didn't like, or tell me about a time when you had someone who worked for you that, was a troublemaker or whatever the case may be. And these other two people just didn't have that. They had some stories, like in college I did this, or when I was on the soccer team I did this. And then I'm like, when I was in the SEAL teams, this happened. And it got to the point where I had a story for everything because, dude, 21 plus years in the military, you're going to have a story for every type of individual that you can come across. Yeah. Because the military, I like to say, is, in my opinion, the most diverse organization I've ever come across.
100%.
And at one point, it got to like the guy next to me who had gone to like an Ivy League school. The interviewer asked the question and I answered it. Nobody wanted to go first after that. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll go first. And then he literally says to the interviewer, what am I supposed to say after that? Like literally, what am I supposed to say after that?
Did he think he was going to get like some I feel bad for you empathy from
I don't know, man.
That is the worst.
It was at that point when I realized I could do this.
Heck yeah.
I can make it here. And then when I got into actual investment banking, I realized yes, you have to be technically sound. You have to be a good banker. You have to understand the numbers. You have to understand all these formulas. But the biggest side of it is you have to understand how to build relationships with people. Because think about it. If I'm a bank, I can't give you that much better of a deal than this other bank, right? Because the rates are set at what they're set at. They're going to go with you because they trust you.
Yeah.
They trust you. They like you, right? You've built a relationship with them. And so I realized that at the higher levels, investment banking and finance is all about relationships. Yeah. And that's when I realized this is awesome because I like numbers and I like building relationships with people. So all that time in the teams in terms of, learning how to understanding that there's always going to be someone better than you. Like that's something that you learn in the SEAL teams. I don't have to tell you, in the SEAL teams, there are guys that are immensely talented, and that is a dose of humility in itself. Mm-hmm. It was the same thing in banking. Some of these analysts, dude, they were like 22, 23 years old, right? And they were immensely more talented bankers than I was. And so I had no problems asking them, like, hey, what do you do? How do you do this? Or tell me what you do for this. Like I had no problems asking them for help, asking them for advice. Lessons that I learned in the teams, building relationships with the clients. Lessons that I learned in the teams, right? Yeah. So all my times in the teams helped me out tremendously for when I got out and got to finance.
So you're doing the investment banking life. You're enjoying it. You're challenged by it. Crazy hours. I mean,
insane hours.
You're making good money, but crazy hours.
Yeah.
And I reached out to you and I was like, hey man, I need some help. And asked you to come do an FTX as a support instructor role, mostly as a translator. But, I remember talking to Jocko and Leif because we had this gentleman, Denver Witten, come through an individual FTX. He calls me like 3 days later. He's like, I need this for my company. It's half of them, if not more than half, is going to be Spanish speaking only. Yeah. He goes, I can speak Spanish, I can translate and help, but do you have somebody that can help you translate Spanish as an instructor? And I said, absolutely.
Of course you said that.
Absolutely. And then I called you. Yeah. And I was like, no, I think I called like Jocko and Jamie and Leif and kind of was like, hey, here's what's going on. I'm gonna call Carlos because you had helped out when you could for FTXs as a role player.
When I was transitioning.
Yeah, when you were transitioning, you had some time, you'd put in a little bit of leave or however it worked, you were helping on as a role player. And this is the same stuff that we ran in the SEAL teams and, which was awesome. And, one of the things I recognized and a lot of the guys recognized, I mean, you had this incredible career in the military and you're coming out helping as a role player for the field training exercises that we run at Echelon Front, and you're like taking out the trash, doing all the crap work like that, a newer person does, but it's like with your background, it didn't seem like you should be doing that, but you did it. You're like, hey, cool, I'm just here. I'm happy to work, make some money. You're definitely a hard worker and a hustler. You always have been. You and I have always had that commonality between us. And so I called you up and asked, and I knew it was going to be hard for you for work and everything. And we had worked out some deals like, okay, well, hey, if we fly you in at this time, and we do this, and fly you back, is that something you could do? And you're like, yeah. And I remember, just explaining to Jocko, Leif, Jamie, Dave that I needed your help. I was like, hey, I need Carlos. He's fluent in Spanish. He understands what we do and how we do it. Here's all the stuff that we've done. And I remember it was really cool because I also told him, I'm like, I would also like to be able to bring Carlos on board as an instructor because I knew we were trying to grow and expand. And they're like, cool. What do you need? And it was really cool for them. Like, there was like zero pushback. It was just like, well, what do you need from us? And I remember we had that conversation. You came out, and it was 2 days. It was 2.5 days because we did 2 full days of FTXs and then a half-day implementation on the back end.
Yeah.
And I remember at the end of day 1, you were just smoked. Well, you already came in on limited sleep because you're doing all your but you were smoked. And I remember you telling me, like, bro, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be because you were having to listen to everything I would say and then translate it. And you were like, there was no opportunity for you to not be paying attention. You had to be
locked on the whole time. Yeah.
Locked on the whole time. And I don't know if people understand how difficult that is because how often do we have to go through life and be 100% locked in? If you're starting a new business, you've got to be 100% locked in. You get in the investment banking world, you had to be locked in. Going through buds, you have to be locked in. And I feel like you had that ability because of the times that it was required of you. But a lot of people don't. I mean, how often do you think people actually have to go through a full day where they are 100% locked in?
I don't know, but I know like you and I do it a lot. Like, the deal. When I'm with clients, I'm locked in. Like, my phone is put away. I'm giving them my full attention. And so Camille and I kind of joke around about it. She's like, why are you so tired? All you did was talk. I'm like, babe, you don't understand. Like, I am focused. Like, I'm listening to I'm actively listening to what they're saying. I'm giving them my full undivided attention. It's exhausting if you do that for 6 hours.
Yeah. And then you go and get on an airplane and go to a completely different time zone, staying in a different hotel, different noises. You're not sleeping very well in that hotel room.
Yeah.
Waking up early and then doing it again and then going to another. We're never in one city for the whole week. It's city and it's never like, hey, can we just go from one time zone to the next and gradually. No,
that would be
like
awesome.
Boom, boom.
Although
boom,
I have
boom.
had those, and those are awesome. When you start on the East Coast and you slowly work yourself to Central Time, then Mountain Time, and then finally you get back to Pacific. Those are ni's, but very rare.
I had one. It was almost it was probably 4 to 5 weeks ago. I'm thinking of the calendar. Yeah, 4 to 5 weeks ago, and I was up in Sioux Falls, North Dakota, for the whole week. I had 3 full day workshops up there.
Wow.
And it was awesome. Flew up there on Monday, was there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and was able to catch a flight home Thursday night. And it was
That's nice.
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome. Okay, so we bring you out and have you start kind of doing some stuff with Echelon Front. We give you an offer. What was that transition like for you? Was it an easy decision? How did you and Camille handle that?
Oh man, if I'm being honest, it was kind of a scary decision.
Yeah.
Because I had put all this time and effort into this other career. It pays very well.
Yeah.
I basically just quadrupled, if not more, my salary that I had in the Navy.
Yeah.
And the conversations that you and I had and Jocko were like, hey, we don't know how well you're going to do. Like, clients could like you or not. There was basically no clear cut. This is what you're going to make.
Yeah.
Because you get paid off of events.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a scary leap of faith for me and for Camille, I think, in particular, because she liked the security of the job that I had. And I don't blame her, right?
Rightfully so.
Yeah, we're doing well. And I said, babe, I really enjoyed it, though. I really enjoyed it. And I'm not doing it for the money. I was like, I'm doing it because I truly enjoyed what I did in that time. And I think I'm going to do all right.
Yeah.
I got to bet on myself.
Yeah. Good.
And I did. And I'm glad I did it. Things worked out.
So are we. We all are.
But
we all are.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a scary leap of faith because, like you said, you get paid per engagement, so you don't know.
So I told you exactly what I've told every other instructor and/or supports personnel that we brought on board is what Jocko and Leif told me. There are no guarantees. We don't know what the op tempo is going to look like. You could have 1 gig or 52 gigs.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
That's scary.
We don't know. And, and then, you were after COVID, but, like we brought Cody on board in 2019 and he's like running all the FTXs. He's not an instructor, but he's running all the FTXs. And we saw the potential in him. We're like, oh, cool. We're going to start grooming him to become an instructor, teaching him these things. And then all of a sudden COVID hits and it's like, he only gets paid off of FTXs. He's not doing anything else. So I was like, all right, cool. Well, sounds like the instructor training starts now, hardcore. And, having him just be a part of everything.
Yeah.
And Cody's very financially responsible and mature. And him and his wife, Paige, they don't exceed anything in their life. They're very frugal and smart. And so I remember having multiple conversations with him. And I'm like, hey, man, he's like, I'm good. We're good. Like we have savings. We have, we're good. And I'm like, okay, cool. And working through that. And that's a conversation I remember reiterating with you because I also knew you were doing well and you liked what you were doing. And I didn't want to take you from something that you liked and also paid well. But, Camille also had made a shift and a transition or was about to at that time.
Oh,
right?
yeah. That was, she went from medical device sales where she did very well as well.
Very well.
And then, she went on a ride along with my stepdad. And she comes home like at 3 a.m, wakes me up, and she says, I'm going to the police academy. And I'm groggy, right? I'm groggy because I'm kind of like half asleep. And I'm like, awesome, babe. Can we talk about it in the morning? I said, I support you. And then in the morning, I'm like, wait, you want to do what?
Oh, my gosh.
And I, if I'm being honest, I tried to talk her out of it. I'm like, babe, it's a very dangerous job. I'm going to be worried about you. Our kids are going to be worried about you. And then she's like, how many deployments did I do with you? And I was like, ooh, okay. You right. But then I was like, okay, but I said, but listen, and this was, I forget what year it was, but it was during the time where police officers are not the most popular people. And I told her that. I'm like, babe, this is not a good time to be a police officer.
This was 2021, I think.
Yeah.
Is when she was making that shift.
Yeah. It was during COVID.
Yeah, because I had you come out in 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I told her, I was like, this is a terrible time to be a cop, babe. And then she says, this is the best time to be a cop. She's like, because this is when they need good people. And I'm just like, dang it. Why do you have all these good answers for everything that I have? And then at one point I realized, you know what? If this is what you want to do, let's do it. I got your back.
Her mindset is incredible. That's awesome. No, this is actually the time to do it because our nation needs good people to become police officers. The whole, if not me, then who? Like, that's incredible.
Yes. I mean, who says no to that?
Could you imagine if after that point you still tried to push back? How much of a jerk you would have been? Like,
I couldn't after that.
And I know you wouldn't have, but especially with how supportive she has been since day one.
Yes, she is amazing.
Because you met her when she was young.
Yeah.
She was, what?
19.
Young? 19, 20? Yeah. She was 19, 20 years
kids.
old. Yeah, we were all kids. I still remember when you first met her. And then us all hanging out and you could tell that girl loved you. And obviously you equally loved her back.
Yeah.
And it was really cool seeing that. You're like, oh, that's the way couples are supposed to love each other.
Yeah.
And you guys have been able to maintain that. It takes work.
Yeah.
Marriage is hard. How long have you guys been married?
Since 2015 now, but we've been together for 16 years.
Wow.
15, 16 years.
That's incredible, man.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's been your biggest lesson over those last 16, 17 years? Or takeaway that you'd like to share with somebody? Yeah, with her, with Camille. I mean, you can't be a jealous guy.
I'm not.
And I know.
Well, actually, I take that back. Listen, man, I'm Hispanic. It's in me. That ain't going away. But I think I'm a confident person.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think I'm tremendously jealous, right? I won't let it like dictate my emotions and actions. Like everybody's got a little bit in there, but I keep it controlled.
Yeah.
As with everybody else. I think probably the biggest lesson that I learned was, even though we loved each other tremendously, we had a little bit of a turbulent start, right? There was a lot of fighting between us. There was a lot of turbulence in our relationship. I like to call it passion, But I think where our relationship really started to take a turn was when I, once again, and listen, I had already had a failed marriage before. So a lot of it had to do with me being scared to commit again and be married again. Like, if I'm being honest, right?
Yeah.
Because I felt like I had to start over again. I felt like I had to start over again, and it was just miserable having to start over again. And so I was really scared. And then I had that thought once again come to my head: if I want this to work, I have to commit 100%. And it was at that moment where I made the mind switch. I literally made the mind switch, like, I am committing to this woman. And I said, all right, if you're wondering why we were together for so long without being married, it's because of that. You know, and she gave me the ultimatum. She's like, hey, if you go on this deployment, she's like, I can't stay anymore. So I was like, all right, let's do it. We went to the courthouse, we got married, and I made the mental shift in my mind where I wasn't going to worry about all the things that I thought she was doing wrong as a partner. Okay, because I could sit here and nitpick all the things that I think she does wrong. Like, listen, I'm an OCD person. You come in, when I was single, you came into my apartment,
Spotless.
it looked like nobody lived there.
Yep.
My wife, not so much. She's a little messy, right? So I would pick on these things like, oh, well, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you're not doing this. And then I realized that those things aren't important. And I realized that I need to concentrate on what I could do to be a better husband, because for all the things that I have to complain about her, I'm sure that she's got a list just as long, if not longer, about all the things that I do wrong.
Yeah.
So when I made that commitment to stop worrying about all the things I thought she did wrong, and I made the commitment to just be a good husband to her and just be a better husband to her, that's when our relationship truly started to blossom.
Yeah.
Because at first she was a little hesitant, man. Because think about all the time we had been together and all this passion, right?
Yeah.
had been exchanged. She was hesitant to my new attitude, and it took a while. But over time, I started realizing that she was doing the same things that I was doing. She started to emulate the things that I was doing,
That's
right?
cool.
She started to take ownership
Yeah.
of things. And I tell the story during my workshops. You know, there was a time where I went into her car and I was moving her vehicle, and she was her Apple Play hooked up to it, and she was listening to Extreme Ownership.
So cool.
And
man.
not because I told her to, because can you imagine how that conversation would have gone?
No.
Hey babe, there's this awesome book I think you should read. It's called Extreme Ownership. I think you would love it. That would have gone horribly for me.
Yeah.
I just, I had read the book around the time, and listen, we all know that those principles are true.
Yep.
We all know that they're right, but it puts it in a nice framework where you be like, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what I need to do. Oh, I'm doing this. I need to take ownership for it.
Yeah.
Because you've always known it was the right thing to do, especially the way you and I were raised. Our parents raised us right.
Yep.
And I realized that the more I took responsibility for things and the more I took ownership of my actions, and I didn't worry about her, the more she started to do it too. And not saying that our marriage is trouble-free, but man, let me tell you, it's a million times better than what it used to be, because we're both always just looking to solve problems. We're not looking to point fingers, and we're constantly looking for ways to improve ourselves and not the other person.
Yeah, that's critical for any organization, especially in a marriage and a family as well. And our kids understand that. But again, like I told you, our daughters are in this phase of like pushing back and rebelling and seeing what they can get away with, which is frustrating because they're just. But I have to give them that grace.
Yeah.
Because my parents did it with me.
Yeah.
And and I know it's just part of them also kind of figuring out like who they are as young people. Sure. And it was the same thing with Amanda and I. I never was like, hey, you need to read Extreme Ownership, but she eventually read it, and it was because we were trying to work on it together. And that's the thing, is like when you make, like you said, when you make the commitment, you can work through anything. It doesn't mean that the problems go away. Like I was saying earlier, like the problems don't go away at Echelon Front. We just identify them and solve them a lot faster than everybody else. Yeah. And we actually start to see them formulating before they actually become a problem, because we're proactively trying to create a good culture and environment. And that's what you can also do. And that's what you guys do in your marriage. That's what you do in your family, is you create this culture and environment that's like, hey, it's one team, one fight. And there's been times where I'm sure Camille has done this with you, and she kind of indirectly did that with you towards your son. It was just reminding you, there's times where, Amanda and I will have friction, and she'll be like, hey, we're team Dinnell.
Yeah.
And like when she says we're team Dinnell, and I'm like,
yeah, you're right.
You're right. 100%.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to make this work. Let's work through this. So, what's your favorite part of what we get to do at Echelon Front?
There's a couple things.
Okay.
One is meeting all kinds of awesome people because listen, our clients are amazing.
Yes.
And I say that because it's very rare that a company that has a bad culture, bad attitude calls, a company that teaches extreme ownership. Usually companies that call us, they're already doing good. They've got good people. They just want to continue to improve. Not saying it hasn't happened, right? Where a company's like, hey, we're legitimately in trouble. We need help.
That happens.
But for the most part, our clients are awesome.
Yeah. Good humans.
It gives me faith in the future because you hear so much negativity. Like if you go on social media, you would think that everybody just sucks.
Yeah.
Right. But when you start going out there and you start traveling to all these different cities, all these different states, and you meet all these awesome people, you're like, wow, there's a lot of good people out here.
Yeah.
Which maybe you and I maybe hadn't seen because we had been in a bubble for so long.
Yeah.
And I think my second favorite part is when I get an email from a client saying that their culture has changed, that they've seen the improvement, that they were able to solve a problem. Man, that feels good.
Yep.
That feels good because I've said this a million times. I never want to feel like I don't bring value to the table.
Yeah.
And so doing that just gives me that reinforcement like I'm doing the right thing. I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. I feel the same way. It's the people, meeting the people. It's always funny because people are like, oh man, you get to go see all these you get to travel all these really cool cities. I'm like,
yeah, actually,
we're not enjoying them.
Yeah, we're not. They're less than 24 hours.
Not doing a tour, There's times where I've been I'm sure the same for you, headed to the airport to go to a gig, and I'm getting a reminder to check in to my next flight.
Yeah,
like I haven't even got, and so, I can be like, the Marriott by the airport's really cool. I can tell you about that one.
Yeah.
Or I know this airport's rental car system sucks. So, too much about airports. It's cool because of the position I'm in, how long I've been with Echelon Front and helping bring people onto the team like yourself and Cody. I'll tell you what's cool for me is I get emails talking about you guys.
Oh, awesome.
It's awesome.
Really?
It's awesome. And, I share that with Jocko and Leif and Jamie and Dave. And, I need a better job like sharing it with the team. And sometimes it's like a text message or like a LinkedIn message, or I get a lot of Instagram messages from people like, I got a text message from somebody who was at the council and recently, and they were just raving about Cody. They're like, dude, he is a phenomenal instructor. Yeah. His ability to communicate and articulate and solve problems and work there. They're like, hey, I just want you to know, like, he's doing a phenomenal job. And I'm like,
that's got to feel good.
Dude, it does.
Yeah.
It does, for sure.
Brought him in.
Yeah. But seeing you guys all thrive, it's really cool to see what we get to do at Echelon Front. It's incredible. What's one of your go-to books that you like to recommend to people?
Oh, man.
Or books.
Besides Extreme Ownership?
Yeah, Extreme Ownership, Dichotomy of Leadership Strategy and Tactics.
So those are my top three?
Yeah. You got to take out the Bible and all of the EF books.
Yes.
So, no Bible either. Oh, wow. Yeah. It's an oldie but a goodie, and I've actually read it a few times, How to Win Friends and Influence People. That one, and then there's another one that I've read a few times just because I feel like I get something new out of it. Never Split the Difference.
Oh, nice.
I've read it a few times because I feel like every time I read it, I get something new out of it. So I would say those are my two probably favorite and when I say favorite, it's because I read them over again.
Okay. Yeah.
Because right? Usually I'll just read a book once and I'm cool.
Yeah.
But those I've read multiple times.
That's cool.
Along with Extreme Ownership.
Yeah, I read How to Win Friends and Influence People when I was overseas.
Yeah.
When I was in Afghanistan. That was the first time I read that book.
That's
and I just remember a couple of guys like teasing me about reading the book, like, ooh, and I'm like, which is so comical, and I'm like, okay, but I actually got a lot from that book while I was on that deployment that I actually was able to apply to building relationships. Yeah. Weird, right? On that deployment that actually was very beneficial. So I agree with those books. That's cool. Do you have a favorite Bible verse or a story from the Bible that you just, sometimes just kind of go back to or maybe not like a specific verse or story, but just an idea or just, a thought you go back to ever?
Oh, man, that's a good one. I would say that one of my favorite stories is the story of Jonah.
Okay.
Because I feel like so many times in my life, I feel like God has given me all these clear cut directions, and I fight it. And I fight it, and I fight it. And it was funny, Camille and I have this conversation. Like, we fought that for so long, and then we realized in the end, once we stopped fighting it and we just let it happen, that it's because that's what the direction that God wanted us to go in.
Amen.
Kind of like Jonah, right? And so if I had to pick a story, that would be my favorite one, because I always think about it. And Camille and I kind of joke around. It's like, dang, we fought this so long, and in the end, it actually ended up being good for us that this didn't work out for us the way we wanted it to.
Yep.
So,
And then you remember, like, oh, yeah, God knows a little bit more than I do.
yeah, and then you realize, like, wow, this was actually a much better path than what I had in mind.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was disappointed, right? And that's happened so many times to us in our lives with Camille and I. I can't even tell you how many times it's like, oh, that actually worked out.
Yeah. What are you doing these days for your health and to push yourself? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, so I've become very aware of my health fairly lately, just because, when you get out of the teams, dude, you're wrecked.
Yeah.
You're wrecked. I wasn't sleeping well. Then I went into banking, which isn't any better, right? I'm working like 90-hour weeks. Yeah. I'm not sleeping. I'm pulling all-nighters, working weekends. So sleep is not a thing there either. Yeah. You're obviously not eating right. And then I rolled right into EF. And same thing with EF, right? I'm burning it down. I'm going to 3-4 cities a week.
Yeah.
And I'll share this for the first time, I guess. But there was an engagement that I did where, as I was speaking, I got really dizzy. Like, I literally thought I was going to pass out, to the point where I had to put my knee on a chair as I was speaking, because I thought I was going to pass out. Wow. And I actually told the client during the break, I was like, hey, listen, this room is spinning right now for me. There's a really good chance that I'm going to pass out. If I do, there's a fire station 3 blocks this way. They should be able to get me, or you guys can just take me there, because that's how bad I felt.
Wow. For you. Okay. Yeah.
Dang.
And this was at the very end of the week, as I had done like multiple red eyes. I had driven all night from Minneapolis to somewhere in the middle of nowhere, South Dakota, like a 6-hour drive. So I got to the gig like at 5 in the morning, and I had to start presenting at like 7.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized it kind of scared me, because I didn't know what it was. Like, I literally, and it happened a couple more times, and I went to the ER, and they were like, you look fine. Everything's fine.
You're like, no.
No. And that's what I said. I was like, no, everything is not fine. I don't feel well. And that's when I realized that I think maybe I had not taken care of myself. Like, I think it's okay to run hard, but if you're going to run hard, you have to take care of yourself. Yep. And I wasn't doing that. Yep. I wasn't eating properly. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't taking proper supplementation. And so at that point, I made a very drastic change in my lifestyle. I started really looking into eating healthy. So I cut all seed oils, or try as much as humanly possible, right?
Yeah.
To cut seed oils out of my diet, processed sugars, alcohol.
That's good.
I really started concentrating on my sleep hygiene. So I started taking like magnesium, and I started taking the proper supplements to basically wind me down. I don't look at my screen, before I go to sleep. I actually put my phone like all the way on the other side of the room. And I started really concentrating on getting good sleep. So now I'm getting good sleep. I started to dream again. Like, bro, I haven't had dreams in like 15 years.
Wow.
Which is crazy, right? Because I was never getting that REM sleep. Wow. And so now I actually kind of monitor my sleep. I'm getting good REM sleep. I take ice baths in the morning. I take my proper supplementation, so I get my blood drawn to see like where my blood levels are at, and whatever I'm deficient in, then that's what I'll supplement, right? Because if you're just supplementing and you don't draw your blood, you're kind of just shooting in the dark.
Yeah, smart.
And so that's how I started doing it. And then the last couple of times I've got my blood drawn, the doctor's been like, I don't know what you're doing, but you literally have the blood work of a 28-year-old.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I've been really taking care of my health, and a lot of that too was, our new addition to the family.
Yeah.
Because I knew Camille wanted to have her own child.
Yeah.
And so we've got a little 3-month-old running around the house.
Dude, let's go.
Bro, I know. I am right there with you. We got 12 weeks, so we're not quite at the 3-month mark yet officially.
We are in 2 days.
Yeah.
3 months.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're about 5 days behind you.
Yeah. It's a young man's game, dude.
No joke. No joke.
If I could do it all over, I would have just had him a lot younger.
Yeah.
But he is awesome.
Yeah.
And I think seeing that again, like, motivated me to take care of myself because I want to be around for him.
Yeah.
I want to be around for him, and I know that we abused our body tremendously when we were in the SEAL teams. I mean, you're abusing your body
100%.
and your mind. So I've really taken the time to take care of myself so I could be around for him.
That's good. That's awesome.
He's awesome. He's a little terrorist, but he's awesome. He doesn't sleep.
That's exactly how I describe my.
He's got some
boys.
serious FOMO, man. Like, this kid is awake and alert, and he tracks you. He tracks everything, and he does not want to sleep, which is cool. But at the same time, it's like, hey, buddy, like, I'm tired. I know you got to be tired. You got to go down for a nap. And he fights it, dude.
Oh, have fun.
But dang, he's cute.
Yeah, he
I
is.
love him
He's
to
an
death.
adorable little boy.
Yeah.
And you talked about Camille. You know, and so right now she's on her leave and taking care of your guys' son. And any other, like, just things you want to share about your wife or your family that you feel like maybe somebody who's struggling in their marriage or wanting to have a good marriage, like, if you were to, like, just give them a little piece of advice other than commit, and focus on the relationship and that aspect. Like, what do you admire about your wife?
Oh, man, where do I start?
That's a good answer.
Safe.
I think Camille is probably one of the most honest, loyal people I have ever met. That woman doesn't have a bad bone in her body.
Yeah.
And that woman loves me, dude, because you have to love me to put up with all the things I put that poor woman through.
Yeah.
I know without a shadow of doubt that woman adores me, and I adore her in return. And I think having that has made me a better man. Having a family has made me a better man. And the more I see it, the more I kind of go through it, the more I understand that as a man, you need a purpose. Mm-hmm. You need a purpose, right? Whether it's your family, whether it's your wife, because men without purpose, they start getting in trouble, man.
Yeah.
They start getting into trouble. And I think that as human beings, God created us to serve. And I think that that's when I'm the happiest, is when I'm serving my family, right? Mm-hmm. I'm providing for them. I'm taking care of them, whether it's financially, whether it's protection, or whether it's my attention too, mm-hmm. right? So when I'm home, I try to be home. I don't look at my phone. I try not to do work stuff. I give them my full undivided attention. And I think all that stuff makes you a better man because you've got some purpose. Yeah. Because I think men without a purpose, I think they start getting lost. And I think that's where they start kind of getting depressed, whatnot.
So, play the victim card, self-sabotage, drink.
Self-sabotage, yeah. When you realize, like, oh, man, you know what? I live my life for my family. I'm not saying you don't need to take care of yourself. You need to take care of yourself because if you don't take care of yourself, you obviously can't take care of anybody else.
Yep.
But I think just putting my family first and realizing that my purpose is to serve them, protect them, love them, that has brought me more happiness than anything else that I've sought out in my life, whether it's the adrenaline rush or, the things that you and I kind of did when we were younger, whether it was drinking or whatever. All that stuff is stupid.
It's for little boys.
It's stupid. Like,
men.
once you realize, like, you got a family and, man, it just feels good to come home. And listen, our marriage wasn't always awesome.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work and a lot of patience, but if you're willing to put in the work, dang, it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good place for us to wrap it up. I mean, obviously I want you to share, like, a final closing thought after I talk about a few things, but I appreciate your time, man. Cool. This has been awesome. Lucas, do you have any questions for Carlos before we close it out?
I do, and I know we're running out of time. So when you moved from Guatemala, you said, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think that move was influenced at all by, like, the unrest in Guatemala at the time? Because that would have been, like, kind of in that period where there was a bit of a civil war that was happening there. Like what was that? Like the 60s to the mid 90s is kind of when that happened. Was that close to where you guys were at, or do you think this was like was your mom trying to get out of that situation too, on top of everything else, do you think, or was that really not where you guys were?
It's possible. I don't know. I guess that's a question you'd have to ask her. I mean, I was 5 years old. I'm not really, entrenched in the political environment.
For sure.
But I do know this. we had a good life there.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we were struggling. So I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, it could have been where she sees the future, right? Like, hey, this is probably not going in a great direction.
Yeah.
Because my family there now, they're okay, but it's
not the same.
It's not great.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe she saw the writing on the wall. She's a very smart woman, and she's like, we got to get out of here. And maybe that's the excuse she told me, because that's what I've always had in my head. She's like, your grandma was spoiling you. We had to get you out of there.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah, we had some close friends that was when like they left in, I guess it would have been like the early 80s, is that they were in a place where they were like, this is, if we don't get out of here now, then the likelihood that we make it out or that we survive this is going to be pretty low. Because
that's
of the way
a possibility.
That things were going.
I never even thought about that, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, that was right around that time, 1984, 85.
Yeah, man. You were like in the thick of it whenever that was happening. Okay. And then my next question, what time period did your stepdad leave the USSR? When would this have been? Because I just have been, I've been going
1980, between 1982 and 84, I guess.
Okay. So I've been going through the Gulag Archipelago. I'm about to start volume 3 of that, and the stuff that they talk about, or that Solzhenitsyn talks about, particularly about the stuff that you said a high school kid wrote something, and they're like, "Hey, when you become an adult, like you're going to the mines." Like that was a death sentence.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
There's no two ways about it. He was going to be in the mines. They were going to find something, because at that point, it is he's committed thought crime. And the thought crimes, the political prisoners in that area during that time period, they did not care at all. Like thieves and murderers got preferential treatment to political prisoners. Like the guards would be throwing in with the thieves. The thieves would steal stuff from other people, and then they would let the thieves out on you had a 10-year sentence for something, and then you'd get on a good behavior in 2, but a person who drew a cartoon would stay in there for the rest of their life because they couldn't have anybody that was speaking out against the party. Yep, you could predict a thief, but not the other. So, and that's a wild deal. What's your relationship with them like now?
It's fantastic now.
Is it?
Yeah. When I left home, there was a period of time where I didn't speak to them for 5 years. As a matter of fact, they didn't even know I joined the Navy. Like, they didn't know anything about my life. And at some point, I decided to rekindle that relationship and go back. And my stepdad and I now, we have a phenomenal relationship.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. We actually have a lot in common now.
Yeah, no doubt. And so the last one, I just want to encourage you, as also an old dad with young kids, is something that we talked about this before. You said you wish you would have had him when you were a little younger, right? Is that I was talking to my dad about this several months ago. As I'm 38 with a almost 3-month-old and a 22-month-old, and I'm like, I'm going to be 60. If we keep having kids, I'm going to be 60 at graduation. Right, so I'm getting myself in shape. Yeah, right. So, so one of the things he said is he was like, you mentioned that you kind of wish you had your kids when you were younger. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, which of those girls that you dated did you want to have these kids with? I was like, oh, absolutely none of them. I would have not wanted like any of those, like even as great as some of those young ladies have become, right?
That's a good question.
Like I would not want to be raising my kids with anybody else other than my wife right now. And he was like, well, if you would have done it when you were younger, those kids would have a different mom. So just enjoy the ride while you got it and stay in shape.
I've been with Camille for a long time though, and we have had this conversation, and she says, you know what? It's good that we didn't have them younger because we were a mess. And I was like, you're right,
sure.
we were.
Yeah. Yep.
So maybe things happen for a reason. Once again, hey, listen, God had a different path for us.
Yeah,
100%.
Exactly. Yeah, he did. Awesome. Well, hey, I just want to thank all of you guys for listening. For everyone that is subscribed to the YouTube channel and subscribed to getting the automatic updates on iTunes and Spotify for the podcast, we appreciate that. It actually helps us out.
All those NCCs out there.
Oh my gosh! He created this thing for NCCs called non-commissioned civilians. Don't laugh at it like that. It's ridiculous.
The NCC Mafia is taking over.
But for those of you that are subscribed on YouTube, you are able to be notified when our YouTube exclusive episodes come out, meaning Every Friday this episode comes out, and throughout the week we put out additional YouTube content for those of you that are subscribed to us on YouTube, so we appreciate it. If you want to follow us on social media, I am at JP Dinnell, 2 N's, 2 L's. Lucas is at Lucas Pinkard, Lucaspinckard, and Carlos is Carlos _Mendez _246. That's CARLOS _MENDEZ _246. Make sure you guys are also following us on Instagram for Echelon Front, LinkedIn, Facebook, all those different platforms. If you want to learn more about what we do, if you want to have Carlos come out and work with you and your company, go to echelonfront.com. Check out the events, the instructors, all the stuff that we have. We'd love to work with you guys again in the future. If you want, also check out Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu _USA. It's a ministry that I'm a part of with Isaac, Stephen, and Josh. We have a podcast. Episodes come out every Tuesday. We're also doing live events, and we also started a discipleship program. So about every 4 to 6 weeks, those events come out. It's a free Jiu-Jitsu seminar. Someone shares their testimony, and then we open it up for some open mat, good Jiu-Jitsu training. And the discipleship program Isaac just started, so it's about 2 to 3 weeks after the other live events to offset that, and we're hosting those at 5 Jiu-Jitsu in Highlands Village. Those are on Wednesday mornings. You don't have to train Jiu-Jitsu to come to any of those events, but if you want some fellowship and just to be around a community of people as we're diving into different books in the Bible, we'd love to have you come out. Also a partner of a Texas beef company called Little Cattle Co.
Get that beef.
Yeah, dog. Best friend Stephen Little started that company. My wife and I partnered with him and his wife last year. If you want to check out what we have going on at Little Cattle Co., go to littlecattle.co. It's our name, but as a website, we deliver beef anywhere in the lower 48 states. We're a custom order beef company, which allows you to order exactly what you want each time based off the needs of your family. So if you want to just order some ground beef, cool. If you want to order some ground beef, a tomahawk and fillets, awesome. If you just want to get a bunch of ribeyes and sirloins, we can do that as well. We can also deliver custom boxes of beef and also the new beef tallow products that we have to friends, family, customers as gifts. We'll include a handwritten note. You can mail us cards to put in the boxes and mail out on your behalf. We've done that before. It's an incredible way for that you just to show your appreciation for other people. It supports our business, and we appreciate all that support. Also, I have another company I'm a partner with called On the Path Printing. Josh and I started that company, and we are now printing shirts. So if your company, small group ministry, or just, if you have printing needs, we can help with all your printing perils. And then Leif, Jocko, and I have a company called Bruiser Arms. You can check us out on Instagram. We're going to edit that out. You've been waiting to do that. Anyways, check it out on Instagram, Bruiser Arms. We're putting out some information on the different gear that we provide and the training as well. And as always, Origin and Jocko Fuel have just given myself, my family, Echelon Front, all of us just incredible support over the years. So we just want to be able to provide them the same support. So if you want to check out what Origin has going on, go to originusa.com. They are a 100% American-made manufacturing company. All the jiu-jitsu gis, I know Carlos and I are getting ready to go roll some jiu-jitsu. All their gis, their rash guards, 100% American-made. All the different types of pants that they have are incredible.
Versa
you got the Versa
today.
Lights.
Yeah.
Those pants are super comfortable.
Super cozy, man. Especially
Also,
in the heat.
Yeah, it's crazy. 100% American-made hunt line, which nobody thought that could be done, but Pete Roberts was like, hold my Jocko Go and watch it happen. But it's been awesome to see that company grow and expand. Also, Jocko Fuel, go to jockofuel.com to check out the different supplements, clean energy drinks. If you want to be on top of your health like Carlos is, and all of us should be, they have the magnesium, they have a sleep aid, they have testosterone boosters, they have stuff for your joints, your krill oil, your fish oil, the vitamin D, the brain power. All those supplements are good, healthy supplements that you should be taking. But I also recommend go do what Carlos did. Go get your blood work done. See what you actually need so you're not gambling with your health, and take ownership over your health like Carlos has. So, Carlos, what closing thoughts do you have for us, my friend?
I wish I had something super insightful and wise, but I guess I'll just share what I always tell my 16-year-old son. Listen, son, happy people are grateful people. That's it. Be grateful for what you got, and you'll always be happy.
Dude, that's huge. Well, I hope this episode has been a reminder for all of us to go out there and do the work that's needed and to never settle, and go out there and be grateful for what God has given you and the opportunities that you have in front of you. This has been the JP Dinnell Podcast, episode 42.